Estimados señores y señoras,
Dear ladies and
muy buenas
gentlemen,
tardes.
good afternoon.
Les damos la más
I'd like to
cordial
give you the
bienvenida
warmest
al seminario
welcome to
Internacionalización en
the
Casa, Claves de la
Internationalization
Docencia
at Home,
Colaborativa Global,
Key
del
of
proyecto
Learning
PUC
in
1966,
Global Teaching.
Internacionalización del
This is a
pregrado
global
en la
learning
UC.
at the University of Maryland
Seguimiento,
International
impacto,
Home. We
fortalecimiento
are working
curricular
on
y
strengthening
movilidad
of a
con
curriculum
especial
mobility,
foco en la
we
región
especially
de Asia.
focused on the
Soy Maribel
Asian
Flores,
region. My name
directora
is
de
Maribel
Formación
Flores.
Global. Es un gusto
I'm the
tenerlos todos
Director
acá.
of Global
Antes de
Training,
comenzar,
and it's
les
a great honor to
solicitamos,
have you
por
here.
favor,
So before we
mantener sus
start, we'd like to
celulares
ask
en
you to
silencio
silence your
durante el
phones
evento.
during the event.
Saludamos a las
I would like
autoridades que
to
nos
greet
acompañan en el
the
día de hoy.
authorities who are joining us
El
today.
rector de
We
la
have the
Pontificia
President
Universidad
of
Católica de
Pontificia
Chile,
Universidad Católica de
señor
Chile,
Ignacio
Mr.
Sánchez Díaz.
Ignacio Sánchez Díaz.
El vicerrector
We have
académico,
the Vice President,
señor
the Academic Vice
Fernando
President,
Purcell
Mr. Fernando Pulsen Torretti.
La
We
vicerrectora de
have
Asuntos
the Vice
Internacionales,
Presidents of International
señora
Affairs,
Lewin Ferrer
Mrs.
Lagunas.
Lydian Ferrer Lagunas.
Miembros del
We have different
Honorable
members
Consejo Superior
of the
y
Superior
representantes
Council and
de las
also
distintas
representatives
facultades.
of the different schools of this
Saludamos
university.
también a los
We'd like
expositores
to
y
greet
panelistas
the different
de este
lecturers
seminario.
of this seminar.
Además, nos
Aside from
distinguen
that,
con su presencia
we have the honor to have
representantes de la
here
Dirección
different
Superior de
representatives
nuestra
of the
universidad,
superior order
directores
of our
de
university,
unidades administrativas y
directors
de
of
docencia,
managerial units and
académicos
teaching
y
units. We also
funcionarios
have
de la UC
scholars
y de
and
otras
staff members of
universidades,
this university and
amigos
other
y amigas.
universities. And at the same time, we have
Para dar
friends
inicio a esta
here with
ceremonia,
us. So
dejamos
to
con
begin with this
ustedes al
ceremony,
rector
we'd
de
like
la
to pass the floor
Pontificia
the president
Universidad
to this
Católica de
university,
Chile, señor
Mr. Ignacio
Sánchez
Sánchez
Díaz.
Díaz.
Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Muchas gracias por estar
Thank
acá
you
en
so
esta
much for
muy
being
importante reunión
here with us in this very
de
important meeting
internacionalización en casa,
on
donde hablamos de un tema
internationalization
tan
at home,
importante
and we're
como
talking
las
about
claves
such an
de la
important
docencia
topic such as the
colaborativa
key
global.
of global collaborative
Y
teaching.
quisiera,
And
felicitar a la
I'd like to
vicerectora y a todo el
congratulate the
equipo
Vice President and
la
her team
organización
for
de
this great
este seminario,
organization,
encuentro,
for this meeting
por
at the
cómo
same
se han
time.
congregado
And I'd also
ustedes
like to thank you for being here with us, for
en la
gathering
actividad en donde
in
vamos a
round
trabajar en
tables.
equipo.
You will be working as
Por
a
lo
team
tanto,
during
me
these
parece que
activities.
estamos
So I
orientados
think
a la
we
tarea
are
que venimos a
focused
hacer.
on the task that
Quisiera
we
dar
are
la más
supposed to
cordial
do.
bienvenida
I'd like
a
to
cada
give
uno
you
y
the
a cada
warmest
uno de
welcome
ustedes,
to each and every one of you,
particularly a María la Luz.
especialmente a María de la Luz y
Welcome
Ross.
to our university.
Bienvenidos a
It's a
nuestra
pleasure to
universidad.
have
Es
you
un placer
here.
tenerlos acá.
Sé que Ross me ha impresionado
And
porque
I
tiene
know I'm very
un
impressed by
español
Ross because he has
bastante
a very
avanzado,
good
no
Spanish,
solamente para hablarlo,
not
sino
only to
también para
speak Spanish,
escribirlo
but
en
also
WhatsApp.
he writes WhatsApp
Así que
messages
me ha demostrado
in Spanish,
una buena
so he's
eficiencia del
shown
lenguaje. Sin
to
embargo,
be
tiene
great,
traducción para que
really
podamos
efficient. But we have translation here
expresarnos
so that we
y
can
entendernos
talk in our
mejor.
mother language.
Saludo a nuestro
I'd like to
vicerrector
greet
académico,
our
a la
academic vice
vicerrectora de
president,
Asuntos Internacionales,
also
a todo el
to the vice
equipo de
president
la
of International
vicerrectoría,
Affairs and the whole team
al
of the
director de
vice
docencia,
presidency,
está nuestra
the teaching
directora
director. We
del
also have the
Centro de
the
Desarrollo
director
Docente
of the Teaching Development Center.
y a todos
And
ustedes que desde
I'd like
las
to greet
distintas
all of you,
vicerrectorías, unidades,
all of you who work from the
facultades,
different
hoy día se
schools, from
congregan
the different
acá. Muchas
academic
gracias,
units
Maribel,
who
por
are
su
here with us. And thank you so much, Maribel, for leading
Te
this
prometo que
event.
no voy a sacar ninguno de sus
And
papeles,
I
porque
promise you
la
I
veo-
won't take
la
any
veo
of these
tensa con
notes
eso.
because I know that
No
you
me
are
vaya a llevar
a
sus
little bit
papeles.
nervous, but I won't take any of your notes, don't worry.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes.
Well, good afternoon.
Quisiera darles la más
And I'd
cordial
like to give you the
bienvenida
warmest
a
welcome
este segundo
to
seminario
the
sobre la
second seminar
internacionalización en
on
casa.
internationalization at
Es muy
home.
importante realizar un
And it's
seguimiento.
very important to have
El
some
primer
follow-ups
seminario
because the first
Lo
seminar
realizamos en
was
mayo
made
pasado.
in
Tuvo
last
como tema
May,
central
and it was
una
focused
internacionalización que
on
llamamos
internationalization,
donde
which
abordamos
we
la
called as a
importancia de la
holistic
docencia en la
internationalization. We addressed
internacionalización
the
de la
importance
educación
of
superior
teaching in the
y conversamos
internationalization
en
process
conjunto
of
sobre algunas
higher education teaching.
estrategias para
And
desarrollar
we
esta
established some
internacionalización
key
en el
strategies
campus
to
y desde el proyecto
make this
educativo de
internationalization
nuestra
and in
universidad.
the educational model of this university.
Es evidente que el mundo
So
en la
it is
era de la
obvious that
globalización se ha
in these
visto
globalization times,
beneficiado en múltiples
the
formas,
world has
pero
been
también
benefited
estos constantes
in lots of
cambios
areas,
y
but
crisis
these ever
que afectan a todo el
going
mundo han
changes and
significado
this
importantes
crisis
desafíos
has
para todos y todas.
created important challenges for all of
destacar
us.
el cambio
And I'd like
global,
to highlight
cambio
among them
climático, distintas
climate
enfermedades,
change,
la
different
pandemia
diseases,
en
the
evolución,
pandemic, the
la
ever-evolving
escasez de
pandemic,
recursos.
the lack of
Todas son
resources as well.
situaciones que
So
impactan
all of
sin
these
duda el desarrollo de
situations
las
have an
comunidades
impact
y por ende
on
el
communities
bienestar
and
de
at the
las
same time have an
personas.
impact in the
Y
well-being
nuestra
of people.
universidad
And
está
our
muy
university
involucrada en los destinos
is
del país.
involved in the
Nuestra
destiny
universidad la
of our
componemos
country.
cerca de 40.000
Our
personas,
university is formed by
entre
more than
estudiantes,
40,000
profesores,
people among
profesionales,
students, professors,
administrativos.
professional
Por lo
staff.
tanto, siempre
So
y desde el liderazgo de la
from
universidad,
considering the
nuestra mirada
leadership of
es
our university,
cómo
we
aportarle
have
al
a
país,
vision, and the
cómo
vision is how
cuidar
can
a
we
nuestra
contribute
comunidad.
to our
Eso
country
es un
and
balance
how can we
muy
take care of our
interesante, muy
community.
importante
And
y
this is
muy
a very
constante
interesting
que tenemos
and
que hacer.
constant balance that we
Poder
always
comunicarnos,
have to keep in our
tener
minds.
la capacidad
We
de
should be able to
escuchar.
communicate.
Qué
We should be
importante en
able
el
to
estallido
listen.
social haber
Considering
podido
the social
escuchar, qué
outburst, it was very
importante
important to
hoy
listen to
día con
everyone.
temas de salud
It was very
mental
important
tan
to consider
ampliamente
such
difundidos
important
y
topics such as
con
mental
tan
health,
alta
for example.
prevalencia de problemas de salud mental, qué importante es
Mental
escuchar.
health reminds us
Escuchar las
how
secuelas de la
important it is to
pandemia,
listen,
desde todo tipo
to
de
pay attention to
ámbitos.
the sequels or to the
Entonces queremos
consequences of the
comprender al
pandemic.
otro
So we need
o la
to
otra en su
understand others.
diversidad
We need to
y
understand
trabajar
them
juntos
in their
en
own
la forma de
diversity,
abordar
and
grandes
we need to work
problemas que
together to
afectan
address
a nuestro
the
país
problems
y al
that
mundo.
are affecting
En
our
este
country and
sentido,
our world.
quiero hacer
So
un
in this sense,
reconocimiento
I'd like to
al
acknowledge
trabajo que ha hecho la
the
Vicerrectoría
work
Académica
that
en
the
temas
academic
de
vice president
inclusión.
has done
Conversábamos
regarding inclusion.
justo hoy día
We are
con el
just
vicerrector,
talking about this
están
with the vice
evaluando temas de
president,
equidad,
and they are
progreso, de
assessing some
inclusión,
things such as
de políticas de
inclusion,
inclusión.
equity, uh,
Y
access
eso forma parte
policies,
integral de
and
una
all of these things are part of a
internacionalización en
holistic
casa,
perspective
porque no
of
podríamos
internationalization at
internacionalizarnos
home,
si no
because
tenemos claro
we wouldn't be able to do it
fuertes
without
conceptos sobre
having some
inclusión,
key
diversidad,
concepts on
y
inclusion, diversity in general.
algunos de estos temas antes y
So,
otros después se han enfrentado
these
o,
topics,
o vamos a enfrentarlos de manera
will
diversa.
be
De ahí la
faced
relevancia a
differently.
que las
This
universidades,
is why
el
it
lugar
is so
donde se crea
important that
conocimiento, donde se
universities,
forma
which is the
de manera
place in
integral las
which
personas,
knowledge is formed,
se ponga al
when
servicio de la
people are
sociedad.
trained
Sean estos
in a holistic
espacios
manner,
donde se practique
are at
una
the service
docencia
of our
que sea
communities. We should
colaborativa y que
practice
sea
a
global. De
collaborative
ahí
and global teaching,
aterrizamos
hence
a nuestra tarea de hoy.
our task
Desde la
of today.
globalidad,
From this
nuestro
global
país,
point of view,
nuestra
our
universidad
country, our
y esta
university,
docencia colaborativa
and
que
collaborative
pesquisa
teaching
realidades que a lo mejor hoy día no
researches
estamos viendo.
different realities.
Es en este tema
So,
en que hoy
because
día nos
of this,
convocamos,
we
para
are
ello nos
gathered here,
acompañan
and because of
expertos
that,
en
we
docencia
have
colaborativa global,
experts
quienes van a
on
compartir con
global
nosotros su
collaborative
experiencia
teaching,
sobre
and they will be sharing with us their
internacionalización en
experiences
casa,
on
docencia
internationalization at
colaborativa desde la
home,
gestión y la
collaborative
práctica en
teaching
el
from
aula,
management
las buenas
and in
prácticas
class,
y los desafíos
and
que
also
han
the
debido
best
enfrentar en
practices
el
and the
proceso.
different challenges they've had to
Habrá
face.
también mesas de trabajo
At the
para
same
conocer
time, we have
experiencias
some working
internacionales
tables to
y
get to
analizar
know
sus
the international
implicancias para la
experiences and
realidad chilena.
analyze the consequences
Quiero
of it
agradecer
to
muy
the Chilean reality.
sinceramente
And I'd
al
like to
profesor
thank
Ross Lewin
Professor
de la
Ross
Universidad de
Levin from
Maryland,
the
con quien
University of
compartimos
Maryland,
hace muchos años
and we've been working
amistad,
together and we are
conocimiento.
friends and we are sharing
La
knowledge
Universidad de
for a
Maryland
while.
es parte
The University
de
of
la Universidad
Maryland
21.
is actually part of
Nos encontramos regularmente,
Universitat
hemos
21,
estado en su
and
campus,
we've
él
been
nos ha
there.
visitado,
He's
y
visited
también
us as
a la
well.
profesora
And I'd
María
also
Luz
like
Hurtado
to
de
thank María Luz
Drexel
Hurtado from the
University.
Drexel University.
Drexel University,
Drexel
quiero
University,
decir
I'd like to say about that,
que es una
that
universidad amiga y muy
it's a
cercana.
friend of ours. We are a very close institution. I'm sorry, María Luz Matus, because I have a friend whose name Hurtado, but yes,
Drexel
Matus.
University
And Drexel
Philadelphia,
University in
desde
Philadelphia,
hace varios años estamos
for several
conduciendo
years
el
we've
programa
been
Leading the
leading
Way,
the program
donde
Leading the
un
Way,
grupo de
in which
12,
a group
14,
of 12,
11, dependiendo del
14,
año,
11, depending on the
estudiantes
year,
nuestros van a tener
of our
una estadía,
students go there.
de perfeccionamiento del
They
inglés
work
a
their English right
Drexel.
there, and they
hemos
learn
trabajado
English
con
at
la
Drexel
Fundación
University,
Friends.
and we've been working with the
Hemos
Friends
tenido experiencias
Foundation.
maravillosas
We've
de
had great
cerca de un mes
experiences
de estadía
for
allá.
a month,
Los hemos
and
despedido
actually
cuando se van a ir, hemos
we've said
conversado con
goodbye
ellos
when
en
they
un
are
desayuno,
going. We've shared with
durante
them
una
during
hora,
a
una hora y
breakfast for
media,
an
con el
hour
inglés
and
que
a
están
half,
desarrollando.
with the English they
Los
are
hemos
developing,
recibido de vuelta
and
y
we've
después de
received
varios
them
meses
once they're back
hemos visto
after a couple
cómo
of
hay
months, and we've seen
crecimiento
how much
muy
they've grown
significativo
in a
términos de
very
su
important way, especially
su
considering
aprendizaje. Así
their
que muchas
learning
gracias,
process.
María
So
Luz, por
thank you so much, Maria Luz,
representar a
for
una universidad que
representing
está
a university that is
trabajando
continuously
colaborativamente con nosotros.
working with us
Para
in a
finalizar,
collaborative
quisiera
manner.
decir
And
que
to conclude,
en
I'd like
nuestra
to say
universidad
that
tenemos la
our
convicción
university,
de
well,
que
we
este
are
es el camino a
convinced
seguir de
that this
manera
is the way to
colaborativa,
go.
que
We
hemos
need to have have a collaborative work. We've incorporated this global teaching, and global teaching is the center of our internationalization strategy led by
El
Lewin
valor que
Ferrer.
tiene esta
The
colaboración
value
para
of
enriquecer
this
la
collaboration
educación es
to
enorme, y
make
por ello
education even
buscamos
better is huge.
incentivar
And
estas
with that,
iniciativas
we are
en
looking
línea.
for these
Esta docencia
particular
colaborativa,
initiatives.
sumada a las
Collaborative
iniciativas
teaching,
de
along with
internacionalización
different
en casa,
initiatives such as
son
internationalization at home,
claves para
are
enriquecer
key
prácticas
elements
pedagógicas de
to
nuestros profesores.
improve the
Hemos
pedagogical
asumido
practices
este
of our
desafío de
professors.
avanzar en la
So we've
implementación de
taken the
docencia
challenge of implementing
global
a
porque
global
queremos
teaching
instalar en la
because we want to
comunidad el
install
valor
in
de
this community
poder
the value
internacionalizar nuestra
of
práctica pedagógica
making our
colaborativa
pedagogical
que permita
practices
fortalecer
international so that we
competencias
can improve
académicas y
our
también
academic
interculturales,
competencies and also
con el
intercultural
consiguiente
competencies.
mejoramiento de
And
nuestra
that way we will
docencia.
be able to improve our
Quisiera
teaching
invitarlos e
practices.
invitarlas a
I'd like to
comprometernos
invite you
activamente en la
to
creación de
actively
estas nuevas
commit
prácticas
and
docentes,
engage in these
poniendo toda
teaching
nuestra
practices
creatividad,
so that we can
conocimientos
become
y
more
esfuerzo
creative, so that
a
we can
este
put all of our
propósito.
efforts into this
Que tengamos
endeavor.
una
So
excelente
let's have
jornada.
a great
Muchas
day.
gracias por la
Thank you so
organización.
much for
Muchas
organizing all of
gracias por la
this, and thank you so
convocatoria que ha
much
sido
for gathering so many
verdaderamente
people
positiva.
in this
Gracias.
particular event. Thank you so much.
Agradecemos las palabras del rector.
Thank you so much,
Continuando con esta
Mr.
ceremonia,
President,
se
and
dirija-
continuing with this
se
ceremony,
dirigirá a ustedes
now,
el vicerrector académico,
the Academic
señor
Vice President,
Fernando
Mr. Fernando Pulsen Torretti, will take the floor.
Yo no fui.
Wasn't me.
Muy buenas tardes a todos y todas.
So,
Saludo
good
a
afternoon,
nuestro
everyone.
director, a nuestra
Greetings to
vicerectora
our
de
President,
Asuntos, Internacionales,
to
María
our Vice
Ferrer,
President of
por
International Affairs,
invitados internacionales,
our international guests,
directores,
as well
directoras,
different
distintas
directors of
vicerrectorías que
different
nos acompañan,
vice presidencies
que
who are
trabajan
joining
también
us
en
here,
distintas unidades
and
de
to all of you
la
who work at different
universidad.
academic units of these universities.
Ciertamente
And-
un honor poder estar en este espacio con esta convocatoria.
And we're very happy to be here. We received an email for the last positions for this, but actually 2 people were missing, so everything is full and we have a lot of people committed with this activity.
En materia de docencia,
And regarding
nuestro
teaching,
foco será siempre
our
el
focus will
aprendizaje de
always
nuestros
be
estudiantes.
the learning of our
Tenemos la
students,
firme convicción
and we are
de que
convinced
las formas y
that
metodologías
the
que
methodologies
garanticen los aprendizajes
that guarantee
deben
learning
estar en
processes
permanente
must
revisión.
be continuously
Esto
reviewed.
porque, así como hay una
This
serie
is
de elementos de
because since we have so
continuidad en el
many
ámbito de la docencia
continuity
universitaria,
elements in higher
también
education
hay cambios
teaching,
importantes
there are
en
some
las nuevas
important
generaciones de
changes
jóvenes,
in the
sus
generation
contextos y
of
entornos,
young people,
lo que nos
also in their
obliga a
contexts.
pensar
So
constantemente
this forces
sobre las
us
formas
to
más
think
apropiadas
about the
de
most
abordar
appropriate
los
way
desafíos
to
pedagógicos,
address these
sobre
pedagogical
todo
challenges.
en un marco de
And at the same
creciente
time, we should
globalización.
consider globalization as
Si
well.
bien la globalización es un proceso histórico que
Globalization
lleva
is a
siglos de
historical
evolución,
process
también
that
lo es
has
que la
taken
densidad
centuries.
de sus capas
It is also important to
es
consider that
diferente
the
en
density
distintos
of
ámbitos
the
del quehacer
layers of
humano.
globalization is very different.
La articulación de
The
espacios globales en
articulation of
torno al
global
comercio y el
spaces
consumo, por
around
ejemplo,
business
han
and
llevado a la
trade and
delantera
consumption
y poseen
has led
una
the
densidad
way,
evidente
and it
dentro
has
de
a
este
very
gran
important
proceso.
density within this huge
Si
process.
hablamos de educación,
Now, if we're talking about
podemos distinguir cierta
education, we
densidad
should
en
distinguish
torno a la
this
experiencia de
density
circulación de
on the
ideas,
experience
teorías
of
y paradigmas
ideas,
que han ido imprimiendo su
paradigms
sello
that
en la
have
forma de
marked
educar
the
en
way in
distintas
which we
partes del globo.
educate in different
Pero la
parts of the
densidad
world.
ha sido menor
But
si es que
density
hablamos
has
no solo de
been
la
lower
adopción
if
o
we are talking
adaptación
about the
de
different
modelos
adaptation
generados o
of
concebidos en
models who
distintas
are
latitudes,
generated at different
sino de
places,
experiencias
but actually
colaborativas a
everything
nivel global
deals
con
with
un carácter
global
sincrónico
collaborative
o con el
experiences
componente de
with a synchronic
co-construcción
element,
de un mismo
and
curso
also
o de
these
componentes
experiences are
de un
usually
curso.
co-built.
En el seminario de hoy,
So in today's
buscamos
seminar,
engrosar y
we want
enriquecer
to
aquellas
enrich
capas de educación
these
colaborativa con sello
layers
global,
of
con la
education with
finalidad
a
de
global
fortalecer
perspective,
los
with the purpose of
aprendizajes.
strengthening different learning
Esto a
processes.
través de formas de
This should be
colaboración
done by
desafiantes,
collaborating
que implican
with
una
different
co-construcción,
challenges, and this
un
implies
trabajo
a
conjunto
co-construction,
para una obra común
a joint
en el
work for a
contexto
common
de un
work
mundo
in the
globalizado.
context of a globalized world.
Tal como nos recuerda el
So,
antropólogo
as the
A.G. Hopkins,
anthropologist A.G. Hopkins
históricamente, la
mentions,
globalización ha sido un
historically,
fenómeno
globalization has been a multi-centered centered phenomena. It can only be fully understood if we start from the basis that it is not the result of a dominant center that activates the different peripheries. It is actually the result of the continuous interaction of different parts at the same time. So under this framework, to strengthen the idea that from Chile, we should start by assuming that global collaborative teaching does not mean to give up to the local particularities and specificities. Actually, globality or the global manner of all of this is built together, and that's what we're looking for as a university. So with this kind of teaching, we can offer our students the possibility to know experiences, life, traditions, customs of different parts of the world. But at the same time, we are offering the world the possibility that other people from other places get to know the reality of our own students, their own experiences, their lives, and their traditions. I'd like to thank our international guests, María de la Luz Matus from Drexel University and Ross Lewin from the University of Maryland. Thank you so much for being here with us. And likewise, I'd like to greet all of you who are the different leaders of these tables, who come from this university and from other 5 universities. So we'd like to give you all the warmest welcome. And lastly, I'd like to thank for this joint effort, considering the leadership of the Vice Presidency of International Affairs and also the professional teams who are behind the organization of this event. I'd like to thank Maribel Flores, who is right here next to me, and her team of internationalization at home. They've been working for several months on this. Also Chantal Janet and Francisca Jara and Francisca Gaete from the team who've been actively participating on this organization by collaborating with the Vice Presidency of International Affairs. Hopefully this will be a great day, considering the challenges that we have ahead of us on teaching and internationalization. So our commitment is to keep working so that these methodologies could reach more students and can strengthen our internationalization at home project. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vice President, for your kind words. So, to go down to business, we will listen to the experiences of 2 international guests, and we will have the opportunity to ask some questions. So first, we would like to pass the floor to Dr. Ross Lewin from the University of Maryland.
Dr. Lewin is the
Associate Vice President of International Affairs of Maryland University. He is responsible for the strategic planning of the internationalization efforts of this particular university. Dr. Lewin, also leads this office and its units to improve the different international services to both the community and the different international visitors of this university. He's trying to promote the internationalization of undergraduate and postgraduate programs of the University of Maryland and to reach some specific associations with the different institutions regarding teaching and also research, and also governmental and non-governmental organizations from all over the world. Dr. Lewin has a major on politics, and also has a master's degree and PhD in German studies from the Stanford University. Today he will be joining us, and he will be sharing his experiences on the management of these particular activities regarding collaborative teaching, and he will be also sharing his relationship with curriculum and global competencies. So now we will pass the floor to Dr. Ross Lewin.
Buenos días, colegas. Es un honor estar aquí hoy.
Probablemente podría dar mi presentación en español, pero no me atrevo,
Because in a New York minute,
porque
I will expose my
en
poor
breve
comprehension
voy a
skills during the
mostrar
question
mis
and answer period.
pobres
So
habilidades, mis
thank
malas
you
habilidades de
for
comprensión
listening
durante la
to
sesión de
my
preguntas y respuestas. Así
talk
que
in
muchas gracias por
English.
escuchar mi charla en español.
I want to thank the
En inglés, en este
international
caso.
leadership
Así
team
que
at
soy
UC
parte del
Chile.
equipo de
Over the
liderazgo
years,
de
I've had
UC Chile.
rich
Quiero
conversations
agradecerles
with
también
Maribel Flores,
por toda la
who
conversación que hemos
organized
tenido
this
con Maribel
workshop and
Flores
has
por
always
organizar
pushed
este
the
seminario
boundaries
y por
of
siempre
what
pasar los límites
international
sobre
education
lo
could be.
que puede llegar a
I
ser
met
la educación
Christian Diaz
internacional.
Castro last
Conocí a
May in
Cristian Díaz
Birmingham,
Castro
United
en
Kingdom, at the annual
Birmingham,
conference
Reino
of
Unido, en una
Universitas
conferencia
21,
en
a
Universitas
global network of
21, que es una
29
red
research
global de
universities,
distintas
intensive
universidades,
universities around the world.
universidades bastante
Christian
grandes en
gave
todo el mundo.
an
Y Cristian,
extraordinary
de hecho, dio
presentation
una
on
presentación
UC Chile's
extraordinaria
initiative to
y pude
re-envision
ver las
student
estrategias
mobility
de esta
that
universidad
places
para promover la
inclusion
movilidad
at the center.
estudiantil, que
I
tiene la
was so
inclusión como el centro.
inspired by
Y
his
me
talk, I
inspiró
approached
muchísimo
him
su charla,
about our
tanto así
institutions
que me acerqué
collaborating.
para que nuestras instituciones
I have
pudiesen
come to
colaborar.
know Maribel's
He
and
podido
Christian's
conocer a Maribel y
boss,
Cristian Boss,
Lilian
y
Ferrer,
también
through the
Lilian
Universitas 21
Ferrer,
network,
en la red
her
Universitas
innovative
21,
ideas on
y así he
international
podido conocer sus
education, and
innovadoras ideas
unflagging
sobre la
commitment to
internacionalización
collaborative
y también su
partnerships
compromiso para generar este
have
tipo de
always
instancias.
impressed me.
Todo esto siempre me ha
Finally,
impresionado. Y
thank you,
finalmente
President
quiero
Ignacio
agradecer
Sanchez.
al rector Ignacio
President
Sánchez.
Sanchez has established
El rector
himself within
se ha
Universitas 21 as
establecido
one of the
dentro
most
de
enlightened
Universitas 21
and insightful
como
voices
una
among
de
the
las
presidents.
voces más
In
importantes
Birmingham,
de la
Ignacio
presidencia.
invited me over
En
to his table in the
Birmingham,
hotel
Ignacio me invitó
where we were
en
staying,
el hotel donde nos
we're
estábamos
staying at,
quedando a
and the first thing he
compartir. Y
said
lo
to
primero
me
que me dijo
is that we need to
fue que
change student
necesitábamos
mobility
cambiar la movilidad
from
estudiantil
tourism
desde
to making a
simplemente
difference.
turismo a
His
alguna actividad que
comment
marque la
has
diferencia.
been my North Star
Y
ever
su
since.
comentario ha sido mi
So
estrella
today
guía
I'm
desde
presenting
entonces.
on the University
Así
of
que aquí
Maryland's
vengo a
International
presentar,
Education
la
Initiative,
iniciativa de
entitled
internacionalización
the
de la
Global
Universidad de
Learning for All
Maryland,
Initiative, a
llamada
common agenda
una
for
agenda
global
común
justice.
para la justicia global.
The context for our
Así que
global learning
el
for all is
contexto del
this:
aprendizaje global
the
es
need
el
for
siguiente.
intentionally
La necesidad
designed global
para
learning
para
in
diseñar
higher
un aprendizaje
education
global en
has
educación
never
superior
become
nunca ha
more
sido
urgent
más
than
urgente.
today. Our planet is in peril.
Nuestro planeta está
Climate
en
change
peligro.
is real,
El
the
cambio
clock
climático es
is
real,
ticking,
el
and
reloj
we have
sigue
not been meeting our
avanzando y
deadlines.
no hemos alcanzado nuestros
Infectious
plazos.
diseases are
Las
killing our
enfermedades
family
infecciosas
members
están
and our
matando a nuestras
friends,
familias, a
while
nuestros amigos,
also
mientras al
irreparably
mismo tiempo
impeding our
están
children's
afectando de
educational
manera
development
irreparable
and
el desarrollo educativo de
devastating
nuestros
our
niños y están
already
devastando
fragile
nuestras
economies.
ya frágiles economías.
And authoritarianism around the
El
world is on the
autoritarismo del
rise,
mundo
rise,
emergiendo
widening the
y
gap
al mismo
between
tiempo se
the
sigue
rich and
ampliando
the
la
poor,
brecha entre
and
los ricos y
threatening
los pobres
democracies
y las
and human rights
democracias
around the
y
world.
los derechos humanos se han visto
It is, of
amenazadas.
course, a
Por
truism
supuesto,
that the
es verdad
only way
que
to
la
tackle
única
these
manera en la que
challenges
podemos
is to
abordar
work
estos
together
desafíos
across
es
borders.
trabajando juntos sin
In one of her
fronteras.
last
Y en
interviews,
una de
your
sus
former
últimas
president, Michelle
entrevistas,
Bachelet,
su
before
expresidenta
stepping
Michelle
down
Bachelet,
as UN High
antes
Commissioner
de
for
dejar el
Human
cargo
Rights,
de comisionada
drew the
de
connection
Naciones Unidas para
between
los Derechos
rights
Humanos,
and planetary
marcó
health.
una conexión entre
Quote,
los derechos humanos y la salud
"There is a
planetaria.
human
Y
right,
dice
a right to a
que hay un
healthy
derecho humano,
environment.
un derecho
I
humano a
believe
un
that the
ambiente
worst
saludable,
threat for
y creo que la
humanity
peor amenaza
is
para la
what we
humanidad
call the
es lo que
triple
llamamos
planetary
la
crisis:
triple
climate
amenaza
change,
planetaria, mejor
pollution,
dicho,
and
el cambio climático, la
biodiversity
contaminación
loss.
y la pérdida de la biodiversidad.
Later in the
Luego, en
interview,
esa entrevista,
she emphasized that the
ella
entire
enfatiza
globe must
que
start
todo
paying
el planeta
attention
tiene que
to
comenzar a
the
prestar
inequitable
atención a
impacts
los
that these
inevitables
existential
impactos
challenges
que estos
are having on
desafíos
marginalized
tienen en las
communities.
comunidades más
Quote,
desaventajadas.
looking again at
Ella
how
dice, si
COVID-19 laid
revisamos
bare all the
cómo el
inequalities in the
COVID-19
world, that made it for me
aumentó
so
las
clear that
inequidades en el
after we are
mundo,
able to
me aclaró
recover from the
rápidamente
pandemic,
que después de
our
que
goal
podamos
is not to
recuperarnos
go
de la
back to
pandemia,
normality,
nuestra meta no es volver
because
a la
that
normalidad,
normality
porque la
was very
normalidad
bad.
siempre estuvo mal.
The normality
La
that was bad was that our
normalidad que era
efforts
mala,
to repair the world without
dice que
addressing
tenemos que reparar el mundo
injustice
sin abordar
is
la
not to
justicia.
repair
Y eso,
the
obviamente,
world
no
at all.
significa reparar el mundo.
World leaders are all
Los
pointing to the
líderes del
same
planeta
proposition.
están
If we
apuntando a la
want to
misma
save
propuesta.
humanity
Si
from our
queremos
own
salvar a la
actions,
humanidad de nuestras
we
propias
have to
acciones,
prepare our
tenemos que
students,
preparar a nuestros
the next
estudiantes,
generation
quienes
of
son la
leaders,
próxima generación
to
de
address
líderes,
these grand
para abordar
challenges
estos grandes
through the
desafíos a
lens of
través
justice.
del lente de
And
la
if we want
justicia.
to advance
Y si
global
queremos avanzar
justice,
en la justicia
we must
social
raise
o
our
o la
students
justicia global,
awareness
tenemos que
through knowledge,
fomentar la conciencia de nuestros
cultivate their
estudiantes a través del
ability to listen
conocimiento,
to
a
those
través del
who are
cultivo
suffering
de
the
su
most,
habilidad para
or as
escuchar a quienes
Michelle
más sufren,
Bachelet said
o,
elsewhere,
como como dijo
to
Michelle
hear,
Bachelet,
quote,
para
the
escuchar,
voices
y abro
of
comillas,
the
la
voiceless,
voz de los que no tienen voz,
and
cierro
provide
comillas,
them the
y al mismo tiempo
opportunities to
entregarles la
apply their
oportunidad para
learning
aplicar su
to help
aprendizaje
cure our
para
sick
ayudar a
world.
curar este mundo enfermo.
These leaders are
Estos
calling
líderes
for action,
piden acción,
and global
y el
learning
aprendizaje
must
global
play a
tiene que
central
tener un
role.
rol muy importante.
If higher education
Si
has
la
a
educación
critical role in
superior tiene un rol
repairing the
importante a
world,
la hora de reparar el mundo,
the field of
el
international
campo de la
education,
educación
at least
internacional,
in the
al
United
menos en
States,
Estados Unidos,
must change the
debe
course
cambiar,
of
y debe
international
cambiar el
education,
curso de
which is
nuestra
focused
educación internacional,
primarily
que se ha
on
centrado
developing the
principalmente
privileged
en
few.
desarrollar a esos pocos privilegiados.
The beginnings of U.S.
El
international
comienzo de la
education
educación
sold itself
internacional de
as
Estados
advancing
Unidos
the
se
common
vendió
good.
como
The
un
oldest
avance hacia el
international
bien común.
organization in the United
La
States,
organización
the
más vieja al
Institute of International
respecto,
Education,
el Institute of
IIE,
International
was
Education,
founded in
IIE,
1919
fue
in the
fundado en
aftermath of World War
1919
I,
después de la Primera Guerra
quote, to
Mundial,
promote the
para
exchange of
promover el
people and
intercambio
ideas
de
and
gente
thus
e
foster
ideas, y así,
greater
de esa manera,
understanding
fomentar un
and
entendimiento
peace
más
among
grande
nations.
y también fomentar la paz entre
In
las
the
naciones.
wake of mass carnage and destruction of
En
this
este
war, in which
contexto
40
de
million people
destrucción
were either
en la
killed
que
or injured,
40 millones de personas
and in the
fueron
middle of the
asesinadas
Spanish
o
flu
lastimadas
that killed
o heridas,
50
mejor
million
dicho, y
people
en
by the
medio
end
de
of
la
1919,
gripe española que mató a 50 millones de personas a
IIE
finales de
aimed to deploy
1919,
students
esta
as citizen
organización
diplomats
apuntaba
who
a
could, through their
desplegar
interaction
a
with
los
people in
estudiantes
other
como
nations,
ciudadanos diplomáticos que podían ir a
develop
otros
goodwill
países
among
para
nations,
desarrollar
which
la buena
could and
voluntad
help
entre
heal
las
and
diferentes
repair
naciones
a
para
world of hurt.
ayudar y reparar un mundo que
But
estaba
while the
herido.
intentions of
Pero,
international education
si bien las intenciones de
While the
la-
intentions of
la-
international education
si
were
bien las
noble, the
intenciones de esta
institutionalization
iniciativa
of
eran
study
nobles,
abroad
la
seemed to follow
institucionalización
a
de estudiar
self-interested
afuera
trajectory.
comenzó a
The
transformarse en una
origins of study
trayectoria
abroad in the
que tenía un
United
interés
States can
más
be
bien
traced
egoísta.
back to
Los orígenes de
1923.
esto
In that
pueden
year, the
llegar a
University of Delaware and
1923.
Smith
Ese
College
año, la
launched,
Universidad de Delaware y
launched
Smith
successful
College
junior year
lanzó
abroad
un
programs,
programa llamado
which
Junior
led
Year
to
Abroad,
many
que
other
llevó a que
institutions
muchas otras
following
instituciones siguieran el
suit.
ejemplo.
The Delaware program
El
was
programa de
launched by an
Delaware se
assistant
lanzó,
professor,
fue lanzado por un profesor,
assistant professor
por un profesor
Raymond
llamado
Kirkbride, who had come
Kirkbride,
off the European
que
battlefield and
llegó
took
del
advantage of a
campo de batalla
generous
en
offer
Europa y,
afforded to American soldiers by the
tomó
French
una
government,
generosa oferta
namely a
de
full
soldados
scholarship to
americanos
study
por el gobierno
intensive
francés
French and
para
take courses
comenzar
on
a
French
estudiar
culture and
francés y
history,
fomentar
all in
y tomar
Paris.
cursos sobre la
France's
cultura
interest in
francesa en
this
París.
scheme,
Y el
according to
interés de
Indiana
Francia en este
University
esquema, de
historian
acuerdo
Wendy
a la
Walton,
Universidad de
was to
Indiana,
ensure that
la
Americans
historiadora
strengthen their
específicamente
ties with the
Wendy
French
Walton,
because German
era asegurarse
intellectual
de que los
thought
americanos
was
fortalecieran
already
sus alianzas con los
influencing
franceses,
American
porque los
society.
intelectuales
So when
alemanes ya estaban
Kirkbride
influyendo
started
en
at the
la sociedad
University of
americana.
Delaware,
Así que cuando
he wanted to
Kirkbride
take advantage
comenzó
of his
su trabajo en la
connections in
Universidad de Delaware,
Paris and
quería
recreate the
aprovecharse de
experience
esas
for his
conexiones en
students that
París y
he
recrear
had
las
enjoyed.
experiencias que él había tenido.
Kirkbride's professed
Por lo tanto,
intention
la
was to advance
intención de
goodwill among
Kirkbride
nations
fue
and, in
promover la
fact,
buena voluntad entre las
centered
naciones y, de hecho,
his curriculum
centró
around
el
international
currículum
relations.
en las
Well,
relaciones
Kirkbride had
internacionales.
lofty
Y claro,
goals. The president
Kirkbride
of the
tenía
University
metas,
of
pero el
Delaware had,
presidente de la
however,
Universidad de
a
Delaware,
different
sin embargo,
idea.
tenía otra idea.
The University of
La
Delaware
Universidad
was
de
a
Delaware
regional
era una
university
universidad
surrounded by
regional
elite
rodeada por
institutions.
instituciones de
In
élite.
promoting the
Y a la hora de
program,
promover este
President
programa,
Walter
el presidente o el
Holohan
rector
wrote that
Walter
his goal was to
Sullivan
graduate
escribió que su
students,
meta era
he
graduar
meant men,
estudiantes, es
who
decir,
could speak
hombres,
French,
que pudiesen
understand
hablar
French
francés,
culture,
entender
as
la
well as
cultura
learn about
francesa, así
international
como también
commerce,
aprender sobre el
so
comercio
that
internacional,
they,
para
these
que
men, could
ellos,
become captains
estos
of
hombres,
industry.
pudieran ser los capitanes de la
Holohan
industria.
thought study
Holohan
abroad could elevate the
pensaba
status of the University of
que estudiar
Delaware
afuera podía
and
aumentar el
indeed
estatus de la
put that
universidad y de
university
hecho poner
on the
a la
proverbial
universidad
map.
en el mapa.
The Smith College Study Abroad program had a
El
different,
programa de estudios en el
different
extranjero de
vision.
Smith College
Its
tenía
idea
otra
was that
visión.
its female
Su idea
students would
era que
live in
las
France,
estudiantes
become fluent in
mujeres,
French
que
and its
vivían
high
en
culture in
Francia,
order to become
aprendieran
French
francés,
teachers
que
at
aprendieran
elite
la
schools
cultura
in the United
francesa, que
States.
se
But if that
transformaran
was
en
Smith's
profesoras de
stated
francés en
goal,
escuelas de élite en Estados Unidos.
its implied
Pero
goal is to
la
provide
meta
greater cultural
implícita
capital
era entregar
in
un
order
capital
to
cultural para
enhance
poder
these students'
mejorar
already
el
high
ya
social status.
alto estatus social de los
Jacqueline
estudiantes.
Bouvier, as
Jacqueline
we all know,
Bouvier,
Jacqueline
que
Kennedy,
ya conocemos como
became the
Jackie
poster
Kennedy,
child of
se
Smith's program.
convirtió
When she
en
became the first
uno de los
lady in
íconos de este programa.
1961,
Y cuando
she
se
brought
hizo primera-
with
cuando
her
se
her
convirtió en la
love
primera
for
dama en
the French language and
1961,
culture
mostró
to the
su
White
amor por la
House and to
cultura
her husband's
francesa,
first
por el
international
francés en
tour to
general en la Casa
France.
Blanca económica, y de hecho
after
de
which
tuvo
both of them
internacional a
secured their
Francia, y
places
luego de que
as
ambos
American
aseguraron sus
royalty.
lugares ya como parte de la realeza
Naturally,
norteamericana.
every parent wants
Naturalmente,
to give their
todos los
children
padres
a
quieren
leg
darse a
up
su
in order to
hijo
rise
una buena
economically
educación
and
para que
socially.
puedan emerger
Yet the
de manera
problem with
económica y
study
social.
abroad in the
Pero el
United
problema de
States
estudiar
was that
afuera,
at
en
certain
Estados
surplus
Unidos
value
es
came
que
at a
este
cost.
valor agregado tenía un costo.
Acquiring cultural
De hecho,
capital was
adquirir
afforded
capital
only
cultural
to
solamente
wealthy
lo podían
white
pagar
Americans.
los
The
americanos
University of
blancos y ricos.
Delaware did not
La
even
Universidad de
accept
Delaware ni siquiera
African Americans
aceptaba
until
estudiantes
1950.
afroamericanos hasta
And only
1950,
then on a
y solo
token
entonces
basis.
lo hacía de manera
And while
muy
Smith
escasa.
College had admitted a
Y si
handful of
bien
African
la
Americans,
Smith College
photos of
admitió
study
varios
abroad
estudiantes
show that
afroamericanos,
these
muchas
students
fotos
were
muestran que
only
estos
white.
estudiantes que iban al extranjero
Study
eran solo
abroad
blancos.
was thus widening the
Estudiar
gap
afuera,
between the rich
por
and
lo
the
tanto,
poor
iba
and
ampliando la
between
brecha
whites
entre los
and
ricos y los
blacks.
pobres y por ende
This
entre
class
blancos
and
y
racial
negros.
divide in study abroad
Esta
is continued
división
into
ha
the 21st
continuado
century.
hasta el siglo XXI.
During the
Durante los
1990s and
90s y los
2000s, colleges and
las
schools were
universidades y las
internalizing the
escuelas,
education
estaban
Professor
internalizando
George Kuh's correlation between
esta
impactful
correlación
education,
entre
such
la
as
educación
study
que tiene un
abroad,
impacto, como
and
por ejemplo estudiar
academic
afuera, y
success.
también el éxito académico.
Between
Entre
1998 and
1998 y el año
study
2008,
abroad
la
participation in the United
participación de
States
estudiantes en el
ballooned
extranjero en
at
Estados Unidos
a record
aumentó
annual
radicalmente
rate
a un
of
récord anual de
7.3%.
7.3%.
I witnessed this growth,
Y yo vi
this
este
growth
crecimiento.
firsthand,
Lo
and
vi con mis
everyone in
propios
my
ojos,
field
y todos
was
en mi
puffed
campo,
up. We
se
were
impresionaron
very,
mucho.
very proud.
Estábamos muy
Our,
orgullosos.
our
De
advocacy
hecho,
for
nuestro
internationalization
activismo
was
por la
finally being
internacionalización
heard.
finalmente estaba siendo escuchado.
In looking back at the
Y
data,
si
I
reviso
have,
los
however,
datos, sin embargo,
realized
me he
that
dado
we were
cuenta
blind
que
to our own
estábamos ciegos
biases.
por nuestros
It
propios
turns
sesgos.
out that the dramatic
Resulta
growth in
que este
study abroad
crecimiento radical de
participation
esta
was
participación de
limited to
estudiantes en
white
el
students
extranjero
only.
se limitaba
Over
solo a
these
estudiantes
10 years,
blancos,
the
y durante
growth rate
estos
of
10
African American
años,
student
el
participation
crecimiento de la
in the
población de
United States
estudiantes
actually went
afroamericanos, de
down.
hecho,
And
descendió.
the Hispanic
Y la participación
participation
de estudiantes
rate
hispanos
remained flat.
se mantuvo
Paradoxically, our
bastante
field
plana,
essentially
y
widened the
paradójicamente,
achievement gap between races and
fuimos
ethnicities
ampliando, mejor
when
dicho,
U.S.
la
higher
brecha
education
entre
was trying
razas
to
y
narrow it.
etnias, cuando en realidad queríamos
Since
disminuirla.
2008, the world has
Desde el
changed
2008,
dramatically in
2008, perdón, el mundo ha
unanticipated
cambiado
ways.
radicalmente y
The
de maneras
acceleration of
sin precedentes.
globalization
La
has led
aceleración
to
de
a
la
resurgence of
globalización
national
ha
populism,
llevado
and
a
higher
resurgimiento
education
del
has become its
nacionalismo
scapegoat.
popular o del populismo
Nevertheless, higher
nacionalista.
education
Al mismo tiempo,
has
la
emerged
educación
as
superior
key
se ha
to
hecho muy
overcoming the
importante. Sin
challenges
embargo,
of
este tipo de
globalization,
educación se ha
namely
transformado en
through
un elemento clave para
discovery and
superar los desafíos
innovation.
de la globalización.
Global learning
El
should thus
aprendizaje
become
global,
more
por lo tanto,
relevant,
se hace cada vez
but
más relevante,
only
pero
if we
solo
reinvent
si nos
ourselves and
reinventamos y
start a
comenzamos
new
un nuevo
chapter.
capítulo va a ser importante.
We must pose some
Tenemos
fundamental
que
questions
establecer
to ourselves. What
fundamentales.
role
Por
should
ejemplo,
international
¿cuál es el rol
education
que tiene que
play
tener la
in a
educación
university
internacional
given
en
this
una
new
universidad,
reality, given
considerando
this
esta
new
nueva
normal?
realidad, esta nueva
What are the
normalidad?
appropriate
¿Cuáles
student
son
learning
los
outcomes for
estudiantes,
global
mejor dicho,
learning
cuáles son los
at
resultados
this
de
historical
aprendizaje
point
que
in
tienen que tener
time?
los estudiantes
What
en este momento
modalities of
histórico?
global learning should
¿Qué
we use to
modalidades de
achieve those
aprendizaje global
outcomes?
tenemos que alcanzar para
How
lograr
do
esos
we
resultados?
engage the
¿Y cómo
university?
hacemos
How
participar
can
a la
we engage
universidad?
students?
¿Cómo hacemos
How do
participar a
we
los
scale up
estudiantes?
global learning
¿Cómo vamos
participation
aumentando nuestra
on our
participación en
campuses?
nuestros campus?
How can
¿Cómo
global learning
puede el aprendizaje
become
global
part
ser
of the
parte
solution?
de esta solución?
The University of Maryland
La
began
Universidad de
wrestling with
Maryland
these questions
comenzó a
well
luchar con estas
before
preguntas mucho antes del
COVID-19.
COVID-19.
In 2014, we launched the
2014
Global
lanzamos
Classroom
la
Initiative,
Global
which had
Classroom
three
Initiative,
goals:
que tenía tres
to
metas.
increase
Primero que todo,
global learning
aumentar la
participation beyond
participación de
study
aprendizaje
abroad
global,
or
más
student
allá del
mobility,
estudiante
to
de
create a global
intercambio,
learning experience that would
generar
provide
experiencia
students with
de aprendizaje global
immersive
que
international
incluya
experience,
una experiencia
and third, to
internacional
make global
inmersiva,
classrooms
finalmente,
fully
generar
integrated
planes de clase
into the
globales
fabric
totalmente integradas
of our undergraduate
en
curriculum.
nuestro currículum.
The global classroom model was based on the state of New York's university system's collaborative online learning initiative called COIL. Many of you may be aware of that, which encouraged individual faculty members to join with faculty at international partner universities to co-teach both groups of students over a digital platform. We were inspired by COIL, but we distinguished our global classrooms by requiring that all of our global classrooms be project-based with real-world deliverables. We had a simple idea: to gain mutual understanding and have an impact. Working side by side is much better than just talking with one another. Our initiative has been a runaway success. The single global classroom 8 years ago mushroomed to more than 55 global classrooms today, involving 11 schools and colleges, so facultades, across the university, and more than 1,200 students. We have learned much from our Global Classroom Initiative. In addition to providing modest seed grants to incentivize faculty, we learned that global classes were most successful when driven by faculty, and not through our attempts to arrange marriages with existing partner universities. We learned that faculty need to share best practices with one another and receive training from campus experts to best understand the practices of project-based education. In those early days, we also learned that managing expectations of our partners and offer training to them were critical. Over time, we have also been happily surprised. Unexpectedly, almost all of the global classrooms that were taking place were with universities in low and middle-income countries. Of the 55 global classrooms in our course catalog today, about 2/3 are in the global south, including Bangladesh, India, Afghanistan, Iraq, China, Egypt, Ecuador, Cuba, Argentina, Jamaica, Liberia, and Ghana. Universities across the United States had been trying to encourage more students to study abroad in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, but with only modest success. Our global classrooms have achieved this long sought-after goal. Recently, we received the content of our courses and realized that almost all of our courses, including those in partnership with universities in upper-income countries, centered around grand global challenges and social justice, such as climate change, food insecurity, health disparities, gender equality, forced migration, indigenous peoples' rights, and educational development gaps. And the faculty teaching these courses have succeeded by and large by organizing real-world, socially impactful projects for these mixed teams of students. Many global classrooms are worth highlighting, but I want to point out a few today. Our agriculture students and their counterparts in Liberia took a course together on food security in Africa, which led to a capstone project in which students created a live radio show to convey practical knowledge to Liberian farmers to help them improve the yields of their cash crops. Our anthropology students with peers at 2 universities in the Amazon, Brazil, collaborated to create the first dictionary of the language of an indigenous community so that they might gain official status as a minority by the Brazilian government. As one last example, our public health students have worked with their counterparts at a Bangladeshi university in an extremely densely populated Dhaka suburb to design that suburb's first waste management system. There was yet one more fantastic outcome of the Global Classroom Initiative. These project-based global classrooms in low and middle-income countries working on projects related to grand challenges and social justice attracted large numbers of students of color. In fact, the number of minority students actually matched their portion of the student population on campus, something that study abroad, student mobility, had never been able to achieve. We realized that our students were actually learning and collaborating with many students, such as those in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Bangladesh, who would not even be able to study in the United States. And our students could not study there. Our Global Classroom Initiative was not only achieving deep interaction with students in very different cultures, but it was making a contribution to the global community. On the heels of this success, we launched the Global Learning for All initiative, a common agenda for global justice. A diverse group of 16 colleagues engaged in extended and at times hotly contested discussions over a period of months to reach consensus on the content of our common agenda. Once we reached consensus, we obtained the support of the provost and the president before pitching the idea to groups of colleagues around the university, including deans, undergraduate studies directors, and faculty. Let me read to you the first paragraph of our one-page document. Quote, "The University of Maryland will educate every student on systemic injustice on a global scale. We will emphasize inequities with respect to the environment, water, public health, education, food security, infrastructure, economic systems, cultural production, housing, and political representation throughout the world. Our common agenda comprises three critical components, engaging every student at our university, placing equity at the heart of our project, and addressing the existential challenges of our time. There are a few other global Learning for All initiatives in the United States, such as at University of California, Davis, and Florida International University. But ours, the University of Maryland's, uniquely focuses on justice. Our Global Learning Common Agenda distinguishes itself by inverting the relationship between the modality of global learning and its outcomes. We are turning the traditional paradigm of global learning on its head. Instead of beginning with the modality, such as study abroad or a global classroom, and then talking about what students have learned and could do, we are beginning with the learning outcomes themselves, and then, and only then, determine which global learning modality should be deployed to achieve them. We have three global student learning outcomes, all of which align with the values and priorities of the University of Maryland. The first is global awareness around global injustice. Every student should gain a deeper understanding of the inequities around the world related to global grand challenges. The second is students should be able to, as University of Chicago philosopher Martha Nussbaum counsels, quote unquote, walk in someone else's shoes by engaging with those who have not been heard. And our third learning outcome is global engagement towards global justice. Global learning cannot be limited to the theoretical. Every global learning opportunity should compel every student at the University of Maryland to advance global justice by giving our students an opportunity to contribute to the global common good. Another distinguishing feature is that we expand beyond the study abroad experience. Study abroad is a critical part of the global learning for all equation, but there are other factors. Study abroad, again, student mobility, is a powerful, immersive, and extraordinary global learning experience, and we are redoubling our efforts to increase access to this experience. Yet, to reach our goal of global learning for all, we must draw on and find other modalities using technology in our classrooms and outside of our classrooms, including in our surrounding communities. We have a very large immigrant community around our university, and one can imagine our students working with that community on addressing the unfair vaccine distribution, a worldwide problem. One global learning modality is not more authentic or better than any other modality, as long as this modality realizes our student learning outcomes. Finally, we believe that global learning must privilege project-based education. Our learning outcomes connect theory and practice. Our student learning outcomes require deliverables. This generation of students is action-oriented. They want to learn by doing. They want to begin with practical, impactful goals, and then figure out what they need to know and what skills they need to realize these goals. Harvard University political theorist Michael Sandel posited in a recent book that a healthy society ensures that everyone feels like their contributions to society are recognized. This generation of students have made clear to us that they want to make a contribution that is recognized even while in college. So how do we provide sufficient opportunities for students to make a meaningful contribution to the global common good? In addition to redesigning study abroad programs and expanding the number of global classrooms, we are now launching a new genre of global learning, the Global Learning Project-Based Module. The theory is that to scale up global learning, we need to integrate it into the courses taught on campus, where the vast majority of education actually takes place. However, instead of just counting classes that have global content, as has been done historically on U.S. college campuses, we are asking faculty either to reframe or tweak, adjust already existing projects in their courses to ensure that they relate to global grand challenges and are centered around student learning outcomes, or to introduce project-based global learning modules into existing courses where project-based education has not been used. These global learning project-based modules can take place in a variety of forms, depending upon the content and the academic unit. They can center around a consulting project with a non-governmental organization in, say, Washington, D.C., or with a community organization around our campus. They can be mini global classroom projects between students here and students abroad. They can even be projects around global grand challenges that students work on just among themselves. Global learning project-based modules can also vary in length. They can be anywhere from 3 weeks to an entire semester. While we ask the faculty to help scale projects so that their students can feel like they have completed something meaningful, the students' contributions may be just one part of a larger project which can be completed in another class or related to a faculty member's research. The challenges are clear to us. Incentivizing faculty who are already overcommitted to develop these courses, organizing regular consultations to academic units and individual faculty members to design modules, and identifying and developing partnerships either in the United States or abroad. While we are, of course, exploring ways to overcome these challenges. We are, of course, exploring ways to overcome these challenges. We have just started a pilot involving 4 academic units, including engineering, public health, political science, and information studies. Over the course of the entire academic year, small teams from each unit will work with each other in retreats and workshops, and then through individual consultations with my team in the Office of International Affairs. The professionally run retreats and design thinking-based workshops will allow team members to share the feasibility of global learning for all, partnership development, and best practices on project-based education. Here we will engage campus experts as well as those of outside our campus. All teams have committed to developing a Global Learning for All strategic plan for their respective unit and designing 2 globally oriented project-based learning modules for existing courses in their unit, which they will implement next semester. We will then use the lessons learned from this pilot phase to create a set of best practices for other academic units to draw on in the future. When we speak about our Global Learning for All initiative, a common agenda for global justice, we often refer to it as reparative international education. Reparative has several different meanings. It is about repairing the world. It is about repairing the injustice in the world. It is also repairing the damage caused by the history of international education in the United States that has historically excluded so many. Our initiative, completely in concert with our new university strategic plan, is a call for action. We believe that global learning focused on justice will empower students as adults, as professionals, and as citizens who are dedicated to improving the global common good. This will enhance our shared humanity and lead to a deeper sense of university pride. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Dr. Lewin.
Thank you very
Ahora le
much,
damos a
Dr.
la palabra a
Lewin.
la
Now we will leave the floor
audiencia
to
para
the
hacer sus
audience for asking their questions.
Dos preguntas.
Two
Vamos a dejar
questions.
como una o dos preguntas.
We will have time for one or two questions.
Sí. We'll be passing around the mic. Sí, una pregunta aquí.
Yes,
Adelante.
there's one question here in the front.
Muchas gracias, Ross.
Thank you very much, Ross. Muchas gracias por su presentación, muy iluminadora. It is very enlightening. Me gustaría preguntarle porque, honestamente, esto es una suerte de
changing the
marco de
way
trabajo
in which
para
we have
cambiar
been
la
doing
forma en
international
que hemos
education
estado
for so many
organizando
years.
la educación internacional durante muchos años.
This is a way in which we need to change the framework in which we have been developing international education for the last years. So, if you were to give us some tips about how to incorporate it within the administration of the university itself, because it's a change of culture. And it's not just a change of the programs, it has to do with everything that happens inside the university. So if you can give us a couple of tips in how to move forward, we would really appreciate that.
Sure. It's a great question, and it's a hard question. This is how I think of it. Higher education in the United States and around the world is changing dramatically, right? Every higher education in every higher education system in the world, at least on the basis of what I've been learning, is now focused on impact. They don't want to the students don't want to just learn for learning's sake. They don't want to just learn to write an essay just in order to structure an essay. And universities don't want to do that. They want to make sure that the universities actually have an impact. So the first thing we need to do in international higher education is we need to align ourselves with what the university and higher education system in our country is actually doing. I'm almost inevitably, it's about impact. They either want to translate research, right? Or they want to actually make sure that they're improving the common good, whether that's in their own country, in their own region, or if it's around the world. And the other thing we always know is they want to elevate their own status in the world. They want to have a better reputation, right? So what we need to do is we need to organize make sure that international offices around the world and in the education that we develop has to be perfectly aligned with what the university is trying to achieve. We can't do something in parallel to the office, to the university, which we have done historically, because we were always a bit, I don't want to say marginalized in the way I use the word in my presentation, but we're always something parallel, something a value added. And we need to now move into the center of the curriculum. And the way we need to do that, as I underscored, I think, in my talk, is begin with the learning outcomes. All higher education is now focused on learning outcomes. It's, we used to just learn and then pray like heck that, we learned something, right? Now we have to be accountable. And I think that's the tip. So if you start from the end and you reverse engineering, that's my first tip. Or actually, my first tip is alignment with the university. My second tip is reverse engineer. And the third thing I would say is you got to build stakeholdership from the bottom up. You can't do it. You can't wait for the university. So, for our vice president for academic affairs, because the first thing you can't say, hey, I want to do this idea. Will you come and promote that? Because the vice president of academic affairs, I'll bet, is going to tell you, well, of the dean supporting you, right? Is the faculty supporting you? The first thing you need to do is you need to work at the bottom and then come with a movement and go to them and say, go to this wonderful vice president of academic affairs or the president and say, I have a lot of people who are really interested in this. It's perfectly aligned with the vision that you have for the university, and it's gonna really help us. We're gonna help the university, and that's what I think we need to do. Those are my three general tips.
Tengo una pregunta acá. No sé si en inglés o en español. No entendí.
Again, I appreciate everyone listening to my English. I'm so sorry.
Lo siento.
One more question?
Yeah.
Una pregunta más, ¿sí?
But, ¿español o inglés?
English or
¿Cómo
Spanish?
funciona?
What do you prefer?
Is it
Okay.
Yes.
Ok, la voy a hacer en español.
I'm going to ask my question
Bueno,
in
muchas gracias
Spanish.
por
Okay.
su
Thank you very much.
muchas gracias por su presentación.
Thank you very much
En
for your
realidad
wonderful
es
presentation.
muchas preguntas pequeñas
Actually,
en una
these
sola.
are many
¿Cómo
small questions in
resuelve
one.
el tema
How
de
do
la
you
docencia
solve
en línea
the issue of online
respecto a cosas que a veces tienen
teaching
un lado
regarding
positivo, por
things that
ejemplo, el
sometimes have
currículum
a
oculto?
positive side? For
¿Cómo
instance, the
contrasta
hidden
su
curriculum.
última
How do you
diapositiva,
contrast
su última
your
imagen,
last
que muestra
slide
como,
in
¿cierto?,
this
educación para todos, amplia,
education
para todo
for
el mundo y de
all,
igualdad,
wide,
con el
and
temor que pueden
equality,
tener algunos
with the
alumnos
fear some
de que
students may
estas
have
clases,
that these
¿cierto?, de
classes
conexión virtual con otras
of
universidades
virtual
pueden ser de
connection with
peor
other
calidad,
universities could
y
be
finalmente terminan
worse in
siendo un
quality,
negocio
and
para
at the end of
muchas
the day
universidades.
become business for many universities.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
bien.
So I'm going to answer in English.
Voy a responder en
right?
inglés.
Okay, when
Yeah.
I talk about online
Cuando
courses,
hablo
I'm not
acerca de los
talking
cursos
about
en línea,
Coursera.
estoy hablando
And I'm not talking about one of these revenue generating, tuition driven courses. This is all gratis, free, right? The win is what we need to do is we need to develop partnerships with universities that are just as motivated as we are. And the way to do that, we have to make sure that the classes themselves, or the content of the courses, the experience of the students at our partner university, or sometimes it's more than one partner university, that they feel that they're going to benefit as much as our students. So nothing about what we're doing is about business. We're not charging anything. We would love to have 50 global classrooms with universities across Chile. And so this isn't a generating revenue issue. That's actually the problem, because we have to support it, and that's costly. And then when I go to the vice president for academic affairs, they say, well, how much is it going to cost, right? So, and they're not usually very happy about that. But my answer even to that was, we can do it relatively cheaply, right? What we really need to do is get the faculty to be motivated, to get involved. And they're very busy people. They teach a lot, they're doing a lot of research, especially at research-intensive universities like ours. And I think the biggest challenge I'm facing, it's not business, it's not turning something into something commercial. The biggest problem is how do I get the faculty member to actually carve out a little bit of time to develop an effective project-based immersive course. And I think you could do it relatively with small financial incentives. But I think, again, the other answer is, if you have in our case, we have a brand new strategic plan. We call it Fearlessly Forward. And all of the different colleges and schools, all the facultades, at our university, they need to deliver on that strategic plan. They need to implement it. So what we try to do in the international office is we go up to them and say, we're going to help you. We're going to make it a win for you, make it easier for you to actually contribute to the implementation of our new strategic plan. And if we do that, then the cost goes down, right? Then we don't need to give as much money to the professors and the faculty to do it, because, there's a lot of pressure they're going to have from their own deans. I didn't answer your question perfectly because it's not commercial, So I don't think we have any more questions. Oh, one more question? Luce.
Or not. Okay. I love one of your lines.
Me encantó una
And
de sus
it's,
líneas.
don't force marriages.
Say that one.
Yes. In your presentation, you had a beautiful line,
Yeah.
and it said,
Forced
marriages don't work.
Yes.
And that's something that we really, I am a faculty member.
Yes.
I oversee, but I also do. And when somebody wants to tell you, you do,
Yes.
you don't do.
Exactly. Oh, I'm agreeing with you. And my point was to agree, in my presentation was to agree with you, is that we tried to do this. We belong to this wonderful network of 29 universities, and we think, okay, who wants to do a global classroom? I'll send out a letter to all these universities, and all these people will line up and they'll want to do it. Didn't work. The best thing, this is what we know. These are your research. We all have partners around the world. It's getting, and we have more and more partners around the world because the world is shrinking. And every single, most faculty members have some connections around the world, and they have friends who they want to really teach together. They've even probably spoken to each other about doing something together. And that's where the success lies. Mostly. Yeah. All right. Bueno.
Muchas gracias, Dr.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rosalie Lewin.
Gracias. Gracias también por las preguntas.
Thank you for the questions to the
Ahora,
audience.
la doctora María
Now,
de la Luz
Dr.
Matus,
María de la
Drexel
Luz Matus
University,
from
nos
Drexel
contará
University
sobre
will tell
un
us
ejemplo
about
emblemático
one
de
emblematic
colaboración global
example
virtual
of global
en nuestra
virtual
universidad.
collaboration in
Y
our
también
university.
desde su perspectiva
And from
de
her
Drexel University.
standpoint of Drexel University.
El Global Classroom de Leading the Way. La profesora María de la Luz
Professor
Matus
María de la Luz
profesora
Matus
asociada
is
de español y
Associate
directora
Professor
de
of
lenguas
Spanish and
modernas en el
Director of
Departamento
Modern
de
Languages
Estudios Globales
in
y
the
Lenguas
Department of Global
Modernas
Studies
de
and
la
Modern
Universidad
Languages
de
of the Drexel
Las
University.
investigaciones de la doctora Matus
Dr.
giran en
Matus'
torno a la
researches
migración
are
y su
around
interconexión
migration
con
and its
cuestiones
interconnection
lingüísticas
with
y
linguistic and
socioculturales.
sociocultural
La doctora
issues.
Matus ha
Dr.
contribuido al
Matus has
desarrollo
contributed
de la docencia
to the
colaborativa
development of
global
collaborative
desde
teaching, global
2015 y ha
collaborative teaching since
realizado este tipo de
2015, and she
colaboraciones
has
con
done this kind of
universidades en
collaboration
Chile
with
y
universities
también
in
en otros
Chile as
países.
well as in other countries.
Lo acerco, me acerco,
Shall
me
I get it
escuchan,
close? Can you
siempre me
listen to
quedo muy
me? I've
cerca de-
always get too close.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Entonces me dicen cuando me
Then
aleje,
you can tell
para que
me
regrese.
when to go back.
Muchísimas
to
gracias a
lean
las autoridades que están
from.
presentes y a
Thank you, the
haberme invitado,
authorities attending
a
today
los
and for having
organizadores.
me invited,
Les
the
agradezco
organizers.
mucho que nos den voz,
Thank you
que
very
nos
much
den
for
voz a
giving
los
us
profesores,
voice, for giving us voice, the
Ah,
professors.
que nos permitan
That allows us
platicarles un poco de
to
lo que
talk a little bit
hacemos
about what we do.
y
And
espero que
I hope
mis experiencias
my
en este
experiences
lado de
in
el profesor Ross nos ha
this
dado
side,
la
Professor
la
Ross has
visión
given us the
administrativa.
administrative
Y ustedes
standpoint, the
escucharon mi
administrative view,
comentario. A
and
los
you
otros, los
listen to my
profesores,
comment.
no nos
To
gusta que nos
us,
digan qué
professors, we don't like
Entonces,
to be
mejor
told
que
what
nos
to do.
motiven.
Rather, we
De modo
we
que,
like being
Como
motivated.
dijo el presidente,
As
he
the
estado en esta
President said,
colaboración con Chile
have
desde
been
el
in this
2015.
collaboration with Chile since
Ha sido un
2015.
bello
It's
matrimonio.
been a wonderful
Nadie lo
marriage.
forzó.
Nobody
Los
forced
dos
it.
nos buscamos
We
y
seeked
nos
each other
encontramos,
and
hubo
we found
sinergia.
each other. There
De modo
was a
que
synergy.
les voy a platicar un poco de,
Then
de
I'm going
mi
to talk about
experiencia
my
en
experience a
esta
little bit in this
misión
mission
de colaboraciones.
of collaborations.
Primero,
First,
Sí, sí.
yeah.
claro, este es sobre Leading the Way, pero
This is
¿cómo-
about leading the
cómo
way,
llegamos a
but
Leading the
how
Way?
can we reach
¿Quién
there,
es
leading
nuestra
the way?
población
Who's
en
our
este momento en el
population
mundo?
in this moment
32%
in the world?
de los estudiantes que están
32%
a
of
través de todo el
students
sistema
across the
son los que
system
tenemos.
are the ones
son los Gen
we
Zers.
have. These are the Gen
¿Quiénes
Zers.
son ellos?
Who are they?
Son
They are
personas que no
people
conocen
Who
la
don't
sociedad
know the society
sin clic, clic, clac, clac.
without making click
¿verdad?
here, click
Ellos
over there.
no la tienen,
If they don't have it,
no van a
they won't
adquirir sus conocimientos.
get their knowledge.
Leading the Way toma,
Leading the
trata de
way
tomar
tries to
lo que
take
les gusta a los
what
estudiantes.
students like.
Hay que tomar aquello que
We have to
los
take
estudiantes,
what
aquello
the
que se interesan.
students are
Se les
interested
tiene que
in.
dar la
We've got to
oportunidad
give them the
de tener-
opportunity. I'm very
Se les
close.
tiene que dar la oportunidad
They have to be given the opportunity
que ellos
to
tengan
make a
ideas y la
contribution,
puedan
for them to
contribuir
have
a nuestras
ideas
clases.
and make a
Y entonces,
contribution
a
with
través de todas
their
las
ideas to our
colaboraciones que he
classes.
formado,
Across all the
siempre mi
collaborations I've been
iniciativa
part
ha
of,
sido,
always my
¿cuáles
initiative
son
has
las
been
pasiones de los Gen
which
Zers?
are Gen Zers'
Están, como nos
passions.
dijo el colega,
As the colleague
¿están
said,
interesados en la
are they
justicia
interested
social?
in social justice?
¿Quieren el cambio?
Do they
Pero
want
creen
changes?
que quieren-
But they
pueden hacer
believe
el cambio, creen
and
que
they
ellos
can
lo
make
pueden
the
hacer.
change. They believe they
Entonces, esta
can
es
make
una
the
forma
change.
en la que les
Then
podemos
this is
guiar
a way we
acerca
can
de
guide
qué
them
hacer.
about what to do.
Les voy a platicar un poco de cómo
I'm going
va
to talk about
Leading the Way
what's leading the way about.
y después
then I'm going to invite a colleague on the stage, because in every marriage we need two. If there are no two, the counterpart in Chile. Leading the Way is a collaborative closed classroom, virtual exchange. Drexel started with the global classrooms of collaborations in 2013. We, in modern languages, Spanish, we started in 2015. And the purpose was that students, this is my scheme. This is. What's the goal? What do we aim at? At the beginning, when I was attending all these conferences about remote collaboration, I was listening to a phrase that annoyed me a lot. Perhaps because I'm sociolinguistic, I hear a lot what they tell and how they tell it. And something they used to tell was, for those who cannot go to study abroad, then I was thinking to myself, this is not a way to encourage our students. Then, what's the purpose? What's the goal? The pictures you saw are this remote collaboration is around a cultural movement, and I will explain you why this movement. The goal of this activity, of this joint work, is that our students improve their linguistic skills in the target language. They learn the perspective, they know, they'll get to know the world through the eyes of the other and do it through art. Yeah, in this moment we are talking about a second language, a foreign language. But I like to think, and it's been written a lot about it, that virtual communication, the global classroom, we're talking about a space. We're talking about a third space, another space. It doesn't replace. It's not, if you don't go abroad, we do this. It is a bridge too. It's a bridge class. It is another space where the purpose is that we, professors, we provide opportunities to students to get to know, being immersed in other societies with their representatives. Our students at Drexel learn about Chile through Chilean students. Chilean students learn about the United States through Drexel's students. Then it's another way of teaching. And it is supported by, first, integrating technology in teaching. 32% of students around the world are from the Z generation. They expect us, professors, to integrate the means in their learning. Statistically speaking, it is proven that folks learn visually. As the colleague said, they learn doing. They need a product. They need to work towards something, task-based. They need a project, something. And when they have that, then knowledge is part of them. And as I said, we also have to give them agency. We have to give them the possibility of being. We have to give them voice for them to contribute to the learning process. For when they graduate, it's something exciting. There was one of my students. He was a chapter narrating the experience of Leading the Way was accepted to a publication. What was he was doing from his student standpoint was telling them what to
De
do.
modo que este es el propósito. que
Then this is the
aprendan y
purpose,
mejoren,
to
la
learn, to
competencia
improve their
intercultural.
intercultural skills. That was
Ahora,
also mentioned.
¿por qué el
Now,
movimiento
why
moralista?
the moralistic movement?
Muchas razones.
Many reasons.
El movimiento moralista en
The
las dos
moralistic
ciudades es
movements in
importante.
the two cities
El
is
de
important.
Filadelfia es
The one in
más
Philadelphia
antiguo que el
is
de
older than
Santiago.
the one in
Pero
Santiago,
tienen unas bases semejantes.
but they have similar
Es
grounds.
una conversación
It is a
de
conversation
la sociedad
from the
con
society
los artistas.
to the artists.
Y lo que hacen al plasmar en esas
And what they do
paredes es
when
producto de
they
la
imprint in
conversación.
those walls is a
Tienen
product of that
participación.
conversation, and they have
Participan
participation.
como
They
modelos,
participate as models,
pintando. Yo he
painting.
pintado con colores.
I've painted with colors,
El artista dice,
and the artist
"Este
says,
rojo", y lo pintan
this
rojo,
is red,
etcétera.
and you paint it red,
Entonces,
etc.
Da
Then
agencia a los
It
participantes,
provides
pero también da
participants agency,
poder.
but it
Los
also
empodera.
provides
Empodera
power.
a
It
los
empowers them,
artistas, empodera a los
empowers
miembros
artists,
de esa comunidad
empowers members of
que
that
están-
community who
sus
are,
paredes están
their
siendo
walls are being
pintadas,
painted
porque es una conversación.
because it is a conversation, right?
Y lo que nuestros estudiantes hacen
And
en
what
Leading the
students
Way es una
do in Leading the Way
conversación cultural
is a
a través
cultural
de los
conversation
murales.
through these wall
De modo
paintings.
que su proyecto final
Then
es
the final, the
presentar
end
un
project is to
las
present a
respectivas
wall
clases.
paint to the corresponding
¿Cómo es esa
classes.
clase?
What
¿Cuáles son
is this
los-
class like?
El esqueleto de la clase.
What's the schema of the
Una
class?
clase colaborativa tiene
A remotely collaborative class has
reuniones, trabajo, actividades
meetings,
sincrónicas y
works,
asincrónicas.
synchronic and asynchronic activities,
Y tiene que tener un producto.
and has to
Debe haber
have
siempre
a product. There always,
Debe haber
has-
siempre un
there
producto,
always has to be a product,
un proyecto.
a project.
La duración de la clase
The
para
length
nosotros
of
en
the
Leading
class
the Way,
for us in Leading the Way,
¿qué? Tuvimos una
Well,
evolución.
we had an
Comenzamos con 6
evolution.
semanas,
We started
seguimos
with
con
6
4
weeks, we
con 5
continued
semanas,
with
después
5
4
weeks, and then
semanas.
4 weeks.
Todo ha sido resultado del diálogo
All has
entre
been a result
los
of the dialogue
compañeros
between
y
classmates
nosotros los que lo
and
administramos,
us, the one who
para
manage,
satisfacer las
in order
necesidades
to
de ambas
satisfy the
instituciones,
needs
que
of
tienen que
both
ver con
institutions, which are
cuándo se
related to
necesitan las notas,
when grades are needed,
en qué momento del
what moment
trimestre,
of
semestre es
the
más conveniente,
semester or
etcétera.
quarter
Siempre
is more
tenemos que-
convenient,
Nuestra
etc.
conversación siempre
Our
es
conversation is always
antes y después de
before
cada experiencia.
and
No solo
after
con Leading
each
the Way,
experience,
sino
not
con
only
todas
with
las
Leading the Way, but with
colaboraciones que
every
tenemos, para
remote
asegurarnos de que
collaboration we
todo
have in
está
place to
funcionando y lo que no
ensure
funciona,
everything is working properly, and what
tratamos de
is
mejorar.
not working, we try to
Siempre
improve
les
it.
comparto a mis
I
compañeros,
always share my
la perfección
colleagues'
no existe.
perfection
Y a veces
don't
es bueno
exist.
que no exista,
And
porque
sometimes
si
it's
nos
good
damos
it
cuenta
doesn't
que
exist,
hubo
because
un
if we notice there is a misunderstanding or a misalignment according to
entonces
literature,
se trata de mejorar.
then it is about
De
improving.
modo que
Then
las actividades asincrónicas
asynchronic
son
activities
conversaciones
are
que son
conversations
orales
that are oral
por escrito,
conversations and in
y
written,
la investigación que hacen
and the
acerca de
research they
su-
do about the wall
se hacen
painting.
en grupos pequeños
They are done in small groups,
de 4.
4 people.
Las actividades
The
mis ojos están tan
The
mal que no estaba
activities,
bien.
my eyes were
Las
so bad I was
sincrónicas
not
son
seeing
3
well.
actividades
Synchronic
preorganizadas.
are 3 activities,
Nos
3
reunimos
meetings.
al
We
principio
meet
para
at the
que se
beginning
presenten, y lo-
for
de lo
them
que
to be
tratamos
presented.
es
And what we talk
que
about,
sea una reunión en
we try
donde
this to be a
haya
meeting
mucha
where we've
sinergia,
got a lot
que
of
presenten
synergy, where they
por qué estudian
present
la lengua, qué es
why
lo que
do
los
they study
motiva,
the
quiénes
language,
son,
what's the motivation, who
y
they are.
generalmente terminamos-
And
yo siempre
usually
termino con
I
una-
always
un
wrap
canto.
up with a
Mi
song.
español es una porra.
My
Nosotros
Spanish
terminamos
is
en Drexel
very
con-
bad.
con
We
la-
finish in Drexel
en
with
el-
the
de call for Drexel.
The
when they
call
are
for
playing
Drexel.
again.
cuando
Y al
ellos
final
se tocan
mis
nuevamente.
colegas en
And at the
Chile
end,
me han
my
dicho,
colleagues in Chile have
o
said,
mis
or my
estudiantes,
students have said,
"Tú eres una
They say you are a very motivated person because we always end the class singing. It turns out that I want you to be excited for participating. Then the synchronic meetings, the first presentation, and at the end of the quarter, we've got two presentations where they are going to present their work, the research work, and that's done. Chileans present in the target language to the Drexel students. They're going to present a wall painting, and they're going to present it contextually, from contextually standpoint, socially, politically, economically speaking, and the reason why they did it. After that presentation, there is a Q&A round, all in the target language, and Drexel students do the same. Dates are determined based on when our classmate, our partner, and our partner institutions need the grades. Asynchronic meetings and activities, as I said, they are 2 to 4 people meetings from both universities, 2 and 2. What we do is having conversations. They will have written dialogues. They have dialogue journals, and they will have communication through WhatsApp. WhatsApp is one of the tools, one of the most used tools around the world. It's for free, and it's one of the most popular as well. In countries it is not existent, they have the substitution. The topics they develop are the same in both environments, both activities, and those evolved. They evolved from something quite general about the culture, something that helped students from UC to be able to adapt to Drexel. It is still cultural, music, economy, meet, or get to know my city, but now it is from my own perspective, view, student. How do you feel? What is representing you? What's the picture representing your culture? What's the music representing your culture? Through communications, and since I was listening to them, I learned about the jaivas. The jaivas and the music they play. That it's so. It is a great satisfaction seeing how both groups of students have talked about social justice. They have talked about things that sometimes you say they do this very professionally, very objectively, and always with a lot of respect. When we had the change of the election, not in this American president, but in the former one, there were questions that some groups said, no, 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 don't ask that, because I tell you, and the other said, okay, I'm going to answer. It was at the beginning, yeah, they feel insecure, they feel the classmate won't react well, but at the end of that interaction, it is very satisfactory that noticing that the students many times continue with their friendship. And many of them are coming from in Drexel, they come here, but not necessarily, but they continue with the friendship and the contact, and they appreciate having had that immersion in this culture. Sure, what I've just said was with the other, but I want to give the opportunity to my colleague before presenting the results, for her to give her perspective on what's been like, because I insist This
This
is a product of
Y en
two
donde
institutions. We are
las dos
friend
hemos
institutions,
dialogado.
and both
Algo
of
que
us have had
se me
dialogues.
pasó
Something
se me
I
pasó
forgot to
mencionarles
mention is
en un principio nosotros
at the
usábamos
beginning we
únicamente
only used
Blackboard
blackboards,
y había resistencia por parte
and
de
there
los
was
estudiantes,
reluctance by
de
students
UC,
from
porque
UC
no todos lo conocían.
because
Para
not all of
comunicarse era
them
Blackboard Collaborate 8.
knew that to communicate
Pero
we used Blackboard Collaborate culture.
A partir del
But
segundo año,
starting the second year,
debido a los comentarios de los
due to the
estudiantes,
comments by
dijeron,
students,
"Es que
they
es
said
mejor
it is
que nosotros
better
seleccionemos
that we
la
choose
plataforma de
the
comunicación
platform for
personal que
personal
queremos".
communication
WhatsApp
we
sigue
want to
siendo.
use.
WhatsApp es
WhatsApp
para
is still.
ponerse de acuerdo, compartir
WhatsApp is to
enlaces,
agree on, to share links, to
decir, mira esta
tell-
canción,
listen to
enviar
this song,
cosas comunes
send common
haciendo
interest
una
things.
conversación.
They are having conversation.
Están haciendo una conversación y no se
They are
entienden, y
having
lo que hacen
conversation
es, a ver,
and
te
they
envío
don't
por
understand
WhatsApp
each
una
other and what they say.
eh,
Let me send you
¿te
through
gusta esta
WhatsApp a
canción?
picture. Do you
etcétera.
like
De
this
modo
song,
que esa
etc.?
sigue.
Then that
Las,
continues
también tenemos Zoom,
being
que ha
the
salido y ahora todo
tool.
el mundo
We also have
que no
Zoom that
conoce
has
Zoom es que
continued
no
on,
conoce
and
el mundo.
everybody, anybody who don't
Pero
know
las otras,
Zoom don't
los-
know about the
los
world.
chicos han decidido
But
que
the students have decided
la
what they
literatura
want,
dice que los
and the
Gen
literature
Zers
says that Gen
prefieren que
Zers
ellos sean
prefer
los que utilicen
prefer being them,
la plataforma
the
de su
ones
preferencia.
using their
De
preferred
modo que
platform.
esas han sido una de las
Those have been
cuestiones que hemos
some of the
adaptado.
issues we have adapted,
Y
some
me
of the
gustaría
things we
invitar
have
a
adapted.
Paula.
I would like to
La vi por
invite
aquí hace
Paula. I
rato.
saw
¿Dónde la
her
vi? Les digo
around
que estoy ciega.
long time. I'm
Para que
telling
ella
you,
nos
I'm
diga-
blind.
ella nos
For
platique
her to
cómo ha sido
talk
su-
about
su
what's
visión desde acá,
her
porque
vision
ella ha
like
estado
from
conmigo
here,
todo este
because
tiempo.
she's been with me
Claro,
all this
ahora que
time.
la vi en
Well,
persona,
now I
le digo,
saw
"Ah,
her in person. I say,
you real?"
oh,
Yes, you are.
you're real.
De modo
Yes.
que ella nos va a decir
Then
cuál
she's
ha
gonna
sido
tell
la
us what's
UC en este caso.
being the UC's experience
te
in
invitamos
this
a
case.
pasar
Paula, we invite you to the stage.
Paula Ross en su rol de
Paula Rose in her role of director, academic director of Industry Association in charge of this academic area. Likewise, she's been specialized in curricular design and linguistic evaluation in English language for different levels of scholarship for literacy. From UC, she has supported the management of collaborative classroom leading the way since the beginning of this program in 2015. Okay, I was given this. Okay, stay there. Or Luz, stay there. Very short because we are a little bit late. Just to take this opportunity that Luz generates to give a testimonial, rather as an invitation from the reality we experience here in CE. As Luz said, it's not about telling us participate in this and we all suddenly will participate in this, but it is about seducing us, and we've been seduced mutually. First, generating this initiative, which is possible due to the collaboration of Pro-Vice President of Institutional Collaboration and UC Philanthropy, where the funds are coming from to generate what for UC students is some scholarship. And complemented to this idea, our students apply to an English course as a scholarship that could have an internship, a 5-week internship in Drexel. That, in fact, happens. Students, 11 students are chosen around that number and they travel. And more important than that, and not to get stuck in the scholarship, what we generate in English, you see, is a support and assistance in an English course which is about language and culture that meets the Spanish course at a certain moments by Professor Matus or another professor from Drexel centers, and our students share with Drexel's students through different formative instances. And what I want to highlight is the importance it has for us, the opportunity all students participating in the course have, because it is not about telling them there will 11 only that could make the trip. Of course, they are making their best to have the trip, but when in the interviews we make an interview at the end with some members of the Friends Foundation, we ask them, if you didn't if you weren't granted the scholarship, how would you assess your experience in the course? And there is no one who's indifferent in that facing that question regarding how much their English has improved, and in particular the confidence they have generated. It generates a level of confidence not only about English. I think it is a global academic confidence, and there is one of the pillars of the globalization well here in the university, which is internalization at home. Finally, our students participate in an experience that makes them feel sharing with other classmates from other study programs in a different university being in the course, and they value a lot, despite they could not be granted the scholarship at the end. Inviting you, or hopefully this testimonial is an invitation to generate motivation in our units to join to modalities that are the certain component or modality in our courses to make global classroom with our colleagues from other universities. Thank you very much. Just to conclude, because we are very out of time. Many results. I would like to highlight. Paula already mentioned the confidence students acquire in their production. For Drexel students, they say, well, I didn't know the guys from UC were nervous. I didn't know it was difficult for them to speak Spanish. I said, really? I'm interested a lot about these 2 points I'm going to highlight. One,
darse cuenta
noticing that we countries are different, but we are similar at the same time. And sometimes they say we teenagers are the same, we eat the same junk food, we like the same music, etc., etc. And seeing themselves as an extension of the other is not weird anymore. I understand. That's the global vision. What we want is a citizenship, a global students to understand, to have the knowledge, to have the way of communicating in different settings and being aware, socially speaking. Then stereotypes are destroyed, and destroying stereotypes is something folks discover. First, they discover there are stereotypes, and not every Americans go to the Super Bowl. Not all of them are rich, and people from the United States notice many things about Chile too. I think those are 2 of the results which are important to be highlighted. And with that, I would like to thank you and invite you, if you have any not doubt, because we're colleagues, but if you have any idea, something you can pass to me, I would be very happy, because 2 heads think better than 1 for even better. With this, I say goodbye to leave the floor to the wrap up of this meeting. But first, I would like to thank you for joining us today. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias. Una segunda profesora, la profesora Luz Matus.
So Professor Luz Matus. Now we will open the floor for 1 or 2 questions, 2 specific questions before we go to the final words of our Vice Presidents. Any questions? Luz, thank you so much for your presentation, and it's beautiful to see what you have told us regarding the stories of the participants. What students achieve, I think, is very, very hard to achieve being in just one place. So I wanted to ask you 2 things. First, one that had to do with the collaboration in courses. Now I'm a vice dean, but I used to be a professor, and we always had this logic of having similar courses, right? Similar courses that cover the same topics. Could you give us some sort of advice about this? Because we need to think out of the box. So what can you tell us about that? And the second question has to do with the management of language. When we have people from two different worlds, when they speak different languages, what sort of suggestions can you do?
Muchas gracias por esa pregunta. The sky is the limit.
El cielo es el límite,
Las
básicamente.
colaboraciones son, en mi experiencia,
Collaborations,
de lo
as
que he
far
visto
as I know, as far as I've
que
seen,
estoy trabajando,
and as far as I've worked,
he visto,
I've seen, well,
les platico.
Let me
Esta
tell you,
colaboración fue
this
entre estudiantes de
collaboration was made
odontología y
among
técnicos
odontology
de
students
odontología.
and
No
technicians.
estudian lo mismo.
They
Y
do
uno
not
dice, ¿qué
study the
hicieron?
same things, so you
Los
may ask,
estudiantes
what did they
de
do?
diferentes países,
So
en un
people from
país de
different
África,
countries, in an African
estaban
country, we had, for
los
example,
estudiantes de odontología,
students from this area,
trabajaron con otro,
and they
en
were
otro
working
continente,
in another
decían,
continent, and they were
"Necesitamos hacer,
saying,
dientes,
for example, we need to make some
prótesis,
teeth, because
pero
they
que
were
sean
dentistry
que sean
students.
económicas y que
But we wanted to
sean
have cheap
ambientalmente
teeth,
saludables."
and they should be
Y lo lograron. Y ese fue el
environmentally
proyecto.
friendly.
Es que
And
toda
they did it, and that was the
colaboración tiene un
project.
producto.
I mean, every single collaboration must
En
have a
Drexel hay
product.
una colega
So
que
in Drexel, for
tiene-
example, we have a
los
colleague
estudiantes hacen un diseño
whose students
de,
design
aparatos técnicos,
some
aparatos
technical
médicos.
medical devices.
Y trabajaron con
And they
otros
work together
países
with other
para hacer
countries
algo
to do something
fue
about that.
algo así como poner
And
two rubber bands and
they had
something
two
else
rubber bands and something
measure
else
the blood pressure. De modo que
to measure the blood
eso
pressure.
yo
So
pensaba también, pero ¿cómo mi clase va a-
So I
no,
was
es que,
thinking, what is
siempre
my class
habrá
going
un
to do?
ángulo,
Don't worry,
siempre
because
va a haber
there's always an angle,
algo,
there's always a way.
un aspecto, lo que les decía Paula, que para mí siempre les digo a mis colegas,
And I always
¿qué
tell my
pueden
colleagues, for
aprender
example,
tus
what can they
estudiantes
learn
haciendo que el
about
libro no
this?
les va a
What
dar
sort of
y que
books?
cuando terminen
I
van a
mean,
sentir un, I made it.
They will feel like
Entonces,
I made
esa
it.
es
So I think
mi sugerencia.
that's my suggestion
La lengua,
here.
dice la
And
literatura
language,
que
well,
se van a
literature
acabar
say
los
that
países que quieren aprender
those
francés,
countries that
alemán,
want to
tarara, y
learn
que tengan la misma
French,
clase.
German will have the same class, actually.
Tenemos que buscar una lengua
So we need to
puente.
find a bridge
Y
language.
si pueden hablar
And
la
if
mitad
they
en un
manage
idioma, la mitad
to
en
speak
otro, es-
half in one
depende.
language and half on the other
No,
language, well, it depends.
No podemos, la
I
lengua no nos
mean,
puede
language
detener.
should
La
not
lengua
be a
tiene que ser
barrier.
un
Language
vehículo.
should be a
Y
vehicle.
no todo tiene que ser aprender
And not everything
la
must
lengua de
be
tal forma,
learning
¿no?
about this or
De modo que
learning
esa-
language in that
eso es
way.
lo que he
So
hecho,
that's what
pero
I've done.
también he visto
But at
en
the same
la-
time, that's what
las
I've seen.
creaciones que han hecho
And the
mis colegas en todo el
different
mundo.
things my colleagues have done in
Acabo
different
de
parts of the
regresar de
world is
una
very, very different. I
conferencia
just
de-
came back
de
from a
COIL
conference in
Barcelona.
COIL
No,
in
from
Barcelona. No, I'm sorry, in Valencia.
Y todo
And
lo último ejemplo ya.
this is the last example.
Eran estudiantes
They were
de
talking about,
educación
well, there were
con algunos
education
estudiantes
students, and these were students,
eran técnicos
they were
que hacían algo
technicians
manual,
that were
algo,
doing something with their
materiales
hands,
para todo.
some sort of material for
Y lo que
everything.
hicieron
And
fue
what they did
los
was,
estudiantes de educación
well, the education
diseñaron
students
diseñaron juegos,
designed different
todo que
games
fuera manipulativo para enseñar
to manipulate, to teach
y la
math,
contraparte
and the counterpart
buscó los materiales,
looked for the different
la
materials
presentación que era más
and the
atractiva,
most attractive presentation
lo
as well,
hicieron.
and they did
de
it.
modo que
They did it,
the sky
so
is the limit.
sky's the limit
so many
actually, and
brains,
with so many
You don't
brains,
have limit.
you don't have limits.
Muchas gracias a la doctora
Well, thank you
Luz
so much,
Matus, y también
Dr.
a la
Luz
señora Paula
Matus,
Ross por
and also thank you,
compartirnos esta
Mrs.
muy
Paula Ross, for
emblemática
sharing this
experiencia en nuestra
wonderful
universidad
experience
y
of our
tener esta
university,
visión desde el
and we'll
aula
have
de
this
lo que
vision from the
significa
classroom,
la
considering
docencia colaborativa
what
global.
global
Ahora,
collaborative teaching actually means. So now,
invitamos a la vicerrectora de
we will
Ferrer
invite the
para
Vice Dean,
compartir con nosotros una
the Vice
reflexión.
President, I'm sorry, to share some final words, some reflections on this.
Bueno, muchas gracias a todos y todas por
Thank you
estar
so
acá hoy
much, everyone,
día.
for being
La verdad es
here.
que estamos muy
And
contentos,
actually,
muy
we are
felices
very
de las
happy
distintas áreas que
from
hemos
the different
participado en la
areas we've
universidad en la
participated in this
organización de este
university,
evento.
considering the
Y muy
organization of this
especialmente
event.
quiero agradecer al
And
Ministerio de
especially, I'd like to
Educación,
greet
porque
the Ministry of
si no
Education,
tuviésemos un
because
proyecto de
if we
mejora
hadn't
institucional
this
como el
kind
que
of
tenemos hoy día,
institutional
la
improvement
verdad es que
project,
esta actividad
well,
quizá no
this
hubiese sido
activity wouldn't have been
posible. Y estamos
possible.
felices
So
no solo
we
de
are very,
contar
very
con la
happy, not
participación
only
de
of
dos
having you
profesores de
here,
las
of having these
universidades amigas,
participants
sino que también estamos muy
from
contentos
our
de tener
universities,
aquí
but
presentes
we are
con
happy to
nosotros
have
a
here
representantes de
different
la
representatives
Universidad
from
de
other
Chile, la
areas,
Universidad de San
from the
Sebastián,
University of Chile,
de
University, well, San
INACAP,
Sebastián
de
University,
UOC,
INACAP,
de la
DUOC,
Universidad del Biobío,
also
de la
from Biobío
Universidad del
University,
Desarrollo,
Universidad del
de la
Desarrollo,
Universidad Católica del Norte. Por
also
ahí me
from the
mandaron
Catholic
un
University of
WhatsApp
the
desde
North.
la
They
UFRO
just
que nos
texted me
estaban viendo
from
en este
the
minuto
UFRO,
y espero no haber
and I
dejado a nadie
hope I
afuera,
haven't
pero
left
la
anyone
verdad es que lo
aside, but
importante
the
es
important
que
thing here
estamos,
is
digamos, de
that
alguna manera
one way or
tratando de
another we are
contribuir
trying
en nuestro
to
país,
make a
y ahí me
contribution.
encantó
We're
mucho
trying to
lo
make
que
something.
dijo el primer
And I
presentador, ¿no
love
es
what
cierto?,
the
de
first
Ross,
lecturer
de alinearnos
mentioned
con lo que queremos
of having an
proyectar como
alliance, of
universidad,
becoming
con lo
in
que
line what
queremos
we
hacer
want to
y la
project
contribución que
as a
queremos
country and the
hacer al
contribution we
país.
want to make to
Para
the country
nosotros
as
como
well.
universidad es
For us
muy
as a
importante
university, it's very
contribuir al
important to
desarrollo de nuestro
contribute to the
país,
development of
pero
our
también al
country
desarrollo
and at
de
the
la
same time
región,
to the development
para
of our
realmente
region,
ser unos
so that
socios
finally we
estratégicos
could
y
be
claves
strategic
para
and
aquellos
key
socios que se
partners for
encuentran en
those
otros
partners
países que a
who
lo
are in
mejor
other
tienen mayor
countries
desarrollo,
and
tienen
maybe they
mayores
have a
recursos
higher
para poder
development, they have
destinar a
more
investigación,
resources,
que tienen muchos más
they may
programas
have
de
more
magísteres de doctorado
master's
o que tienen
degrees,
otros
more
modelos de formación de
PhDs,
personas.
or they
Y
have other
finalmente
training
tenemos que
models.
encontrar la
But in
forma
the end, we need
única
to
para
find
formar a
a
los
unique
futuros
way
profesionales
to train
en
future
Latinoamérica.
professionals in
Y
Latin
yo creo que
America.
eso y instancias de
And
colaboración
I think
online, de
these
docencia
online
colaborativa global, es
teaching
lo que nos va a permitir hacerlo.
examples are some
Ahora,
of the things
esto
that
no
will
es
allow
fácil
us
porque
to do that.
finalmente es un desafío.
This is not easy, of course, because
Necesitamos
this is a
generar un
huge
cambio.
challenge. We need to
Y ese
generate
cambio
some changes.
necesariamente
And
es
those
un
changes,
llamado, y me queda absolutamente
and
claro con
I'm
las dos
sure about this
presentaciones
because of
previas
these
hoy
two
día,
presentations,
que es un llamado a
I'm sure
salirnos
that
de la
these
estructura
changes
y de la
are
forma como
a
hemos
way
hecho
in
las
which
cosas
we
siempre.
should start
También agradezco
thinking
mucho a Ross
out
por
of the
haber
box. And
dicho,
I'm really thankful with Ross for saying
internacionalización no puede quedar como
that
un apéndice
internationalization
en
should
una
not be just
institución de educación superior.
some small
Y
thing within a higher
efectivamente
education
estoy muy
institution.
contenta y
And I
agradezco
agree with
también
that. And I'm
aquí
very
al
happy
vicerrector
also to
académico que
the
está con
academic vice
nosotros,
president
al
who is here with
copresidente, al
us.
rector de nuestra
I
universidad, a los
also
otros
thank the
vicerrectores,
president of this
a
university
los
and
prorectores
other
también,
authorities of this
porque la
universities,
verdad es que esta
because
vicerrectoría que se
this
consiguió hace
vice
2 años
presidency
se consiguió
that
desde
started
ahí,
2.5
de una
years
integración
ago
con el
started
resto
in
de la
that area
universidad.
to become
Si yo también puedo
integrated
dejar
with
un
the rest of
mensaje
the
en términos
university.
de
If
esta
I can leave
colaboración,
some final
es una
words about this
colaboración global que
collaboration,
se logra
it has
si
to
hay
do
una
with a
colaboración
global
interna. Entonces
collaboration,
yo creo que ahí
but
también
also
es
with an
muy
internal
importante tenerlo en
collaboration.
cuenta.
And I think it's very important to consider all of
Solamente antes
this.
de irnos al café,
And just before we go to a break,
escribí un par de palabras
I've written a few words while I was listening to our
unidad,
guests.
respeto,
They're talking about
diversidad,
unity, respect,
sensibilidad por las necesidades de
sensitivity,
nuestro planeta.
sensitivity for the
En
needs of
eso,
our
las
planet.
personas
And
y su
in
formación
these
integral
concepts,
en educación superior
people
es
and their
crítico.
comprehensive
Como
training
universidades
in
tenemos la
universities
tremenda
is
misión
critical.
y responsabilidad
As universities, we
de
have a
formar
huge
personas
responsibility of
para que el
training
mundo,
people so that the world,
perdón, formar personas
and
para el
actually
mundo,
to train
quienes
people for the
contribuyan
world,
a la creación
these
de
people
espacios
will
para el
contribute to the
encuentro y
generation
bienestar humano.
of
Yo creo que
spaces
lo que
for
se
the
habló
human
hoy día tiene
well-being.
que
And
ver
I
con
think
eso.
everything we've
No
said
podemos
so
seguir
far has to do with
pensando
that.
o
We should
alejándonos de la
stop
humanidad.
thinking
Creo que finalmente
about something
en
else.
una lógica
We should
también
stop
de
moving
construir
away
un
from
mundo mejor para
humanity.
todos.
We should
Como
build a world
universidades
for all of
necesitamos
us. And as a
subirnos
university,
al carro de
we
eso,
need
de formar
to
estos
follow
ciudadanos
that line.
globales.
We need to
Y la
train
verdad
these
que es un
global
proyecto
citizens. And I think
maravilloso
this
en
is
que
a
yo siento que
wonderful
estamos
project.
llamados todas
And I
las
believe
personas que
that all
participamos
of
en la
us who are
comunidad
part of this
de la
university, all
educación
of us who are
superior,
part of
pero es
higher
una
education
responsabilidad
communities have
tremenda.
this
Así que
responsibility.
bueno, espero que
So
después del café los invitamos
after the
como
coffee
decía
break,
ahora 15 minutos.
a 15-minute break, we will continue continue. We'll have the possibility of working in small tables so that we can discuss this, and as Luz mentioned, hopefully we can have more ideas, because this is not just 4 brains working. We are many brains, and we have a huge diversity in the human group that is here with us within this beautiful room. So thank you so much, and hopefully we will continue to share with you for a better country, for a better Chilean education, and also to strengthen Latin America as a whole. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias. Antes de cerrar,
Thank you
quisiéramos
so much.
dejarles
So before wrapping
con
up,
un video que hemos
we
preparado en
will
conjunto
pass
con
a
el Centro
short
de
video that
Desarrollo
we have
Docente.
prepared along with the Teaching
Así que
Development
eso,
Center.
un regalito.
So this is a
Muchas
small
gracias
gift,
también,
and thank
y
you
ha
so
sido
much.
fabuloso toda esta
And it's
colaboración
been
y estas
wonderful to
experiencias.
collaborate with you, to
Tenemos
share
muchas
our
ganas de
experiences.
también escuchar todos
We
esos
are
ejemplos de
eager
la vida
to
real
listen to
que
your
nos
real
van a
life
compartir
examples
lo que
that
se va a
will
discutir aquí en las
be
mesas.
shared
Así que
in these
muchísimas gracias.
tables. Thank you so much.